Alara Voss thought she knew danger. She was wrong. One reckless kiss with the city's most feared crime lord turned her entire life into a battlefield she never asked to enter. What began as a drunken dare became a contract written in blood, power, and obsession. She wasn't supposed to survive. She wasn't supposed to want more. But in Adrian Cade's world, survival isn't the endgame, domination is. And the woman who kissed a monster is about to become something far more dangerous. If you want to see how far this story goes, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see where this journey takes us. Now, let's begin. The Ascent Club didn't just exist in the city. It owned a piece of it, carved out like a tumor that fed on money, secrets, and the kind of people who preferred their sins wrapped in velvet and served with aged whiskey. Alara Voss stood near the bar, champagne flute dangling from her fingers, like she'd forgotten it was there, watching the crowd with the detached interest of someone who'd stopped caring about appearances 3 drinks ago. She looked good, she knew that much. Black dress that hugged in all the right places, hair swept into something that passed for elegance, makeup sharp enough to cut. But underneath the polish, she felt hollow. Divorced for exactly 4 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Not that she was counting. "You're doing that thing again," Maya said, appearing at her elbow with another round of drinks Alara definitely didn't need. Maya Chen had been her best friend since college, the kind of friend who showed up at your door with wine and bad advice when your marriage imploded. Tonight she dragged Alara out with the explicit mission of getting you back out there, which apparently meant a nightclub that catered to the city's elite and the criminals who bankrolled them. What thing? Alara took the drink anyway. "Looking like you're cataloging everyone's worst decisions." Maya grinned. "It's very on-brand for a PR consultant, but off-brand for someone who's supposed to be having fun." "Maybe I'm bad at fun." "You're bad at letting go," Maya corrected, "which is why we're playing a game." Alara's stomach dropped. "No." "Yes. Truth or dare. Old school. Except we're adults now, so the stakes are higher." "We're not 16 anymore, Maya." "Exactly, which means you can handle it." Maya's eyes gleamed with the particular brand of mischief that usually preceded terrible life choices. "Come on, live a little. Your ex-husband is probably boring some 23-year-old yoga instructor to death right now. Don't let him win by being boring too." Alara hated that the words stung, hated more that they worked. "Fine, 1 round." Maya's grin widened. "Truth or dare?" "Truth." "Boring. Dare." "I didn't choose dare." "You did now." Maya was already scanning the room, her gaze calculating. "See that man? Near the VIP section? Dark suit, silver watch, looks like he could ruin your life and make you thank him for it." Alara followed her line of sight. The man in question sat alone at a private table, surrounded by empty space that seemed intentional. People gave him a wide berth, an orbit of avoidance. He wasn't particularly tall, but there was something about the way he held himself, spine straight, shoulders relaxed, hands folded on the table like he was waiting for something inevitable. His face was sharp angles and controlled expression, dark hair swept back, a jaw that could have been carved from marble. He looked expensive, dangerous, untouchable. "I dare you," Maya said, voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "to walk over there and kiss him." Alara choked on her champagne. "Absolutely not. Come on, what's the worst that could happen? Rejection, assault charges, getting thrown out of a club I didn't even want to be in? Or," Maya countered, "you get a story. A really good one. The kind that makes you forget about spreadsheets and alimony lawyers." Alara stared at the man again. He hadn't moved, hadn't looked up, but something about him radiated control, like he was the still point in a chaotic room, the axis everything else revolved around. She had no idea who he was, didn't care. That was the point, wasn't it? To stop caring, to do something reckless and stupid and completely out of character. "You're insane," Alara muttered, "and you're stalling." Maybe it was the champagne. Maybe it was the months of feeling like a failure, like a woman whose entire identity had been tied to a marriage that imploded without warning. Maybe it was the need to prove she still existed outside of disaster control and damage reports. Alara handed Maya her glass. "If I die, it's your fault. I'll give a beautiful eulogy." The walk across the club felt longer than it should have. Alara was aware of eyes tracking her, the subtle shift in attention as she moved through the crowd toward the VIP section. The man still hadn't looked up, hadn't acknowledged her. Security started to step forward, but he raised one hand, barely a movement, and they stopped. She reached the table, her heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline making her fingers tingle. Up close, he was even more unsettling. Not classically handsome, but compelling in the way a car accident was compelling. You couldn't look away. "Hi," she said, and her voice came out steadier than she felt. He looked up. His eyes were dark, gray, maybe, or a brown so deep it looked black in the low light. They swept over her once, clinical and thorough, like he was cataloging every detail and filing it away for later use. "Can I help you?" His voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't need to be raised to command attention. Alara's brain screamed at her to leave, to apologize and retreat back to Maya and forget this whole idiotic plan. Instead, she leaned down, braced one hand on the table, and kissed him. It was supposed to be quick, a peck, a stupid dare to fulfill so she could go back to her friend and laugh about it. But the moment her lips touched his, something shifted. He didn't pull back, didn't push her away. His hand came up, fingers curling around the back of her neck, holding her in place. The kiss deepened, turned into something that tasted like whiskey and danger and a mistake she'd be thinking about for the rest of her life. 3 seconds, maybe 4. When she pulled back, her pulse was racing. His expression hadn't changed. If anything, he looked calmer, more settled, like she'd confirmed something he already knew. "That was bold," he said quietly. It was a dare. The words tumbled out before she could stop them, and she immediately regretted the honesty. A dare. He repeated it like he was tasting the word, finding it lacking. "Do you know who I am?" "No." "Good." He released her, leaning back in his seat. "You should leave now." It wasn't a suggestion. Alara straightened, suddenly very aware that she'd just kissed a stranger in a nightclub filled with people who looked like they traded in violence and secrets. Her face flushed. She turned to go. "One more thing." She stopped, looked back. His eyes were still on her, and there was something in them now, something that made her skin prickle. "What's your name?" She should have lied, should have walked away without answering, but the champagne and adrenaline made her reckless. "Alara." He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Alara, I'll remember that." She didn't run back to Maya, but it was a close thing. Her friend was vibrating with barely contained excitement, clutching Alara's arm the moment she got close. Oh my God, you actually did it. You kissed Adrian Cade." The name hit her like cold water. "Who?" Maya's expression shifted from delight to horror in the space of a heartbeat. "You don't know who that is?" "Should I?" "Alara," Maya's voice dropped to an urgent whisper. "Adrian Cade, the Adrian Cade, he runs half the organized crime in this city. Drugs, guns, money laundering. If it's illegal and profitable, he's got a hand in it. People don't talk to him unless he allows it. They definitely don't kiss him." Alara's stomach dropped. "You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking?" Maya glanced back toward the VIP section, but Adrian was already gone, his table empty except for a half-finished glass of whiskey. "We need to leave. Now." They didn't speak in the cab. Alara sat with her hands folded in her lap, mind racing. A mob boss. She'd kissed a mob boss. On a dare. Because her best friend thought it would be funny. "I didn't know," Maya said finally, her voice small. "I swear, Alara, I just thought he looked dangerous in a hot way, not dangerous in a might-actually-kill-us way. It's fine." It wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. Maybe he'll forget about it. I mean, he probably has women throw themselves at him all the time, right? "You're just one more." Alara didn't answer. She kept thinking about the way he'd looked at her, like he was memorizing her face, the way he'd said her name, slow and deliberate, like he was carving it into memory. "I'll remember that." She told herself it didn't mean anything, that it was over. A stupid mistake that would fade into an embarrassing story she'd never tell anyone. She was wrong. The next morning arrived with the kind of hangover that made Alara question every life choice that had led to this moment. She dragged herself out of bed, showered until the hot water ran cold, and dressed in her standard work uniform, tailored blazer, pencil skirt, heels that added 3 inches, and an air of competence she didn't currently feel. By the time she walked into her office at Sterling Communications, she'd almost convinced herself that last night had been a bad dream. Her assistant, Jordan, looked up from his desk with an expression that immediately put her on edge. "Morning? You've got a visitor. I don't have any appointments until 10. "I know. He doesn't have an appointment." "Then tell him I tried. He said he'd wait." Jordan's voice had a careful quality to it, like he was delivering bad news and hoping to avoid the fallout. "He's in your office." Alara's stomach tightened. "Who is he?" "Didn't give a name, just said you'd want to see him." She pushed past Jordan and opened her office door. Adrian Cade sat in her chair behind her desk, reading through a file that should have been locked in her drawer. He looked up when she entered, expression mild. "You're late." Alara closed the door behind her, heart hammering. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." He set the file down, fingers tapping against the cover. "You have a nice setup, small firm, but respectable. Good client list. A few scandals you've managed to bury successfully. Impressive work." "Get out of my chair." He smiled, and this time it almost looked genuine. "I like you, Alara. You've got backbone. Most people would have started apologizing by now." "I'm not apologizing for last night. It was a stupid dare, and it's over." "Is it?" He stood, moving around the desk with the kind of fluid grace that suggested he was very comfortable in his own body. "See, that's where we disagree. You kissed me. In front of a room full of people who now think you're either insane or connected to me. That's a problem. Your problem, not mine. Our problem." He was close now, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated. Because now people are asking questions. Who is she? Why did Adrian let her walk away? What does she mean to him? "I don't mean anything to you." "Not yet." He reached out and she forced herself not to flinch as his fingers brushed her jaw, tilting her face up. "But you will. Because I've decided you're going to work for me." She jerked back. "Absolutely not. I'm not asking." He pulled a folded document from his jacket and handed it to her. "As of this morning, I own a controlling stake in Sterling Communications. Your firm, your clients, your reputation. All of it belongs to me now." Alara unfolded the paper with shaking hands. It was a contract, legal, binding, signed by her business partner, Marcus Sterling, selling 49% of the company to a shell corporation she didn't recognize. She looked up, fury burning through the fear. "This isn't legal. Marcus wouldn't—" "Marcus needed money. I provided it. He didn't ask questions. Smart man." Adrian took the contract back, folding it with precise movements. "Here's how this works. You're going to be my crisis strategist. When I have a problem that needs a public face, you're going to fix it. You're going to make me look legitimate, respectable, clean. I don't work for criminals. You do now." He moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. "Oh, and Alara, if you try to run, if you go to the police, if you do anything other than exactly what I tell you, I'll destroy everything you've built, your firm, your reputation, your clients. I'll make sure no one in this industry ever hires you again. You'll be finished." "Why me?" The question came out raw. Why not just hire someone who actually wants to work for you? He looked back at her, and for a moment something almost like amusement flickered across his face. "Because you kissed me. And that means you're brave, reckless, or stupid. Maybe all three. I can work with that." Then he was gone, leaving her standing in her own office, feeling like the ground had just opened up beneath her feet. Alara spent the next hour trying to find a way out. She called Marcus, but his phone went straight to voicemail. She reviewed the contract, looking for loopholes, but it was airtight. She considered calling a lawyer, but Adrian's threat echoed in her head. "I'll destroy everything you've built." She believed him. Jordan knocked on her door around noon, looking nervous. "There's a courier here with a package for you. Says it's urgent." The package was a slim black box with her name written on top in silver script. Inside was a phone, brand new, expensive, no markings, and a single note. "Answer when I call. AK." The phone rang an hour later. She stared at it for 3 rings before picking up. "I'm not doing this." Adrian's voice was calm, unbothered. "Yes, you are. Check your email." She pulled up her inbox on her computer. The top message was from an anonymous sender. No subject line, just an attachment. She clicked it, and her entire body went cold. Photos. Dozens of them. Her and Marcus at a dinner meeting last year looking far too friendly. Her accepting a cash payment from a client who'd later been indicted for embezzlement. Her doctored quotes in press releases. Statements she'd rewritten to hide uncomfortable truths. Every corner she'd cut. Every ethical line she'd blurred. Every decision she'd made to protect her clients. Documented and compiled into a dossier that could end her career. Where did you get these? Does it matter? Adrian sounded almost bored. You're good at your job, Ilara. Very good. But you're not clean. No one in your line of work is. I'm just the first person who's bothered to look. This is blackmail. This is employment. You work for me now. First assignment starts tonight. A shipment of mine was intercepted by the feds. I need you to craft a narrative that keeps my name out of the news cycle. Details are being sent to your new phone. Don't disappoint me. He hung up before she could respond. Ilara sat in her office until the sun started to set, staring at the phone like it was a bomb. She could refuse. She could go to the police, confess everything, take whatever consequences came her way. But Adrian was right about one thing. She wasn't clean. Those photos would ruin her, and she'd worked too hard to let her career implode because of a stupid dare. The phone buzzed. A text message, no name attached. Black car outside your building. Be downstairs in 5 minutes. She looked out her window. Sure enough, a sleek black sedan idled at the curb. Windows tinted, driver invisible. Ilara closed her eyes, took a long breath, and made her decision. She grabbed her coat and went downstairs. The car took her to a warehouse on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place that looked abandoned but probably saw more traffic than a shopping mall. The driver didn't speak, didn't look at her, just pulled up to a side entrance and unlocked the doors. Inside, the warehouse was surprisingly organized, crates stacked neatly, forklifts parked in rows, fluorescent lights humming overhead. Adrian stood near a makeshift desk, talking to two men in suits who looked like they'd kill someone before breakfast and not lose sleep over it. He glanced up when she entered, dismissing the men with a nod. You came. Did I have a choice? There's always a choice. You made the smart one. He gestured to the desk, where files and photographs were spread out like evidence at a crime scene. The Fed seized a container ship 3 days ago, $40 million in product. My product. They're holding a press conference tomorrow morning to announce their victory in the war on drugs. I need that press conference to be a disaster for them, not me. Ilara moved closer, studying the files. Manifests, shipping logs, customs documents, all pointing back to a company she didn't recognize. Who's the fall guy? Excuse me? You need someone to take the blame. A narrative only works if there's a villain. It can't be you, so who is it? Adrian's expression shifted, something like approval flickering across his face. The shipping company, owned by a man named Victor Chen. He's been skimming from me for months. This is convenient. You want me to frame him? I want you to make sure the story is about his negligence, not my operation. Leaked documents, anonymous tips, carefully worded press releases. You're good at this. Do what you do best. She stared at the files, feeling the weight of the decision settle over her. This wasn't crisis management. This was covering up a crime, protecting a criminal, becoming complicit in something she'd spent her career pretending didn't exist. If I do this, we're even. You leave me alone after tonight. Adrian laughed, short and sharp. No. If you do this, you prove you're useful, and I keep useful people close. I don't want to be close to you. You kissed me, remember? You're already close. He stepped toward her, and she held her ground, refusing to back down. You have 2 choices, Ilara. Work with me, or watch everything you've built burn to the ground. Either way, you're in my world now. You just get to decide whether you're a survivor or a casualty. She wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to walk out and never look back. Instead, she picked up the files and started reading. Ilara worked through the night. She drafted press releases, leaked documents to journalists she knew would run with the story without asking too many questions, and crafted a narrative that painted Victor Chen as a reckless businessman who'd ignored safety protocols and federal regulations. By dawn, the story had shifted. The Fed's press conference became a referendum on shipping industry oversight instead of a victory lap for law enforcement. Adrian watched her work, silent and observant, occasionally offering details she wouldn't have access to otherwise. He didn't micromanage, didn't hover, just watched her work like she was a puzzle he was figuring out piece by piece. You're better than I expected, he said as the sun started to rise. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not. Impressed, maybe. You don't hesitate. Most people would have spent half the night arguing morality. Morality doesn't pay my bills. Good. He handed her a cup of coffee she didn't remember him making. We're going to work well together. This is a one-time thing. Keep telling yourself that. She left the warehouse exhausted and furious, but also, disturbingly, exhilarated. She'd just rewritten reality for a crime lord, and it had worked. The news was already picking up her story. Victor Chen's name was trending. Adrian's wasn't mentioned once. When she got back to her office, Jordan met her at the door, eyes wide. You need to see this. He handed her his phone. On the screen was a news article. Shipping mogul Victor Chen under federal investigation. Below it, a quote from an anonymous source, a quote she'd written. This is insane, Jordan said. It's like someone rewrote the entire news cycle overnight. Yeah, Ilara said quietly. Insane. Her new phone buzzed. Another text from Adrian. Good work. Rest. You'll need it. Next assignment starts tomorrow. She stared at the message until her vision blurred. She'd crossed a line. She knew that. What she didn't know was whether she'd ever be able to cross back. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Adrian called and Ilara answered. He sent assignments and she completed them. A rival gang leader arrested? She leaked evidence of police corruption to muddy the waters. A journalist sniffing around one of Adrian's front companies? She fed him a bigger story about city council bribery. A politician threatening to investigate organized crime? She dug up his affair and made sure it went public. She told herself it was temporary, that she was looking for an exit strategy. But the truth was harder to swallow. She was good at this, better than she'd ever been at her legitimate work, and some dark, buried part of her was starting to enjoy it. Maya noticed. Of course she did. You look exhausted, her friend said over coffee one afternoon. They were at their usual cafe, the one with the expensive lattes and uncomfortable chairs. When's the last time you slept? I sleep. You look like you're running on fumes and anxiety. New client, Ilara said, keeping her voice light. High maintenance, lots of late nights. Maya frowned. You're being weird. I'm always weird. No, this is different. You're cagey, and you never answer your phone anymore. I've been busy. With what? Ilara talked to me. You've been acting strange ever since that night at the Ascent. Did something happen? Ilara wanted to tell her, wanted to confess everything, to unload the weight of the past 2 weeks onto someone else. But Adrian's threat hung over her like a noose. If you tell anyone, I'll know. And she believed him. Nothing happened. I'm fine. Maya didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. They finished their coffee and parted ways, and Ilara felt the distance between them widen with every step. That night, Adrian called. We need to meet in person. I'm working on the... I don't care. Tonight, 11 o'clock. There's a restaurant in Midtown called the Ivy Room. Private dining. Be there. He hung up before she could argue. The Ivy Room was the kind of place where the waitstaff remembered your name and your preferences, where privacy was guaranteed and questions weren't asked. Ilara arrived 5 minutes late, more out of spite than anything else, and was escorted to a private room in the back. Adrian sat alone at a table set for two, a bottle of wine already open. He looked relaxed, almost casual in a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled up. It was the first time she'd seen him look anything other than controlled. You're late. I had work to do. For you. Sit. He poured her a glass of wine without asking if she wanted it. We need to talk. Ilara sat, keeping the table between them. If this is about the city council member, I already told you. It's not about work. He leaned back, studying her with that unnerving focus she was starting to recognize. You've been doing good work, Ilara. Better than I expected. But you're burning out. I'm fine. You're not. You look like you haven't slept in days. You're making mistakes. I haven't made any mistakes. Not yet. But you will if you keep going at this pace. He sipped his wine, watching her over the rim of the glass. I need you sharp, focused, which means you need to take care of yourself. I don't need a lecture. You need a break, a night off. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to have dinner. We're going to talk about something other than work. And you're going to remember that you're a person, not just a tool I use when I need something fixed. Alara stared at him, trying to figure out if this was a trap. Why do you care? Because, Adrian said slowly, people who burn out become liabilities, and I don't keep liabilities around. So this is self-interest. Everything I do is self-interest, but that doesn't mean it's not also practical. He gestured to the table. Eat, talk. Pretend we're normal people having a normal dinner. She wanted to refuse, wanted to walk out, but she was exhausted and the food smelled incredible, and some part of her was desperately lonely. So she stayed. They talked about inconsequential things. Books, movies, the city's failing infrastructure. Adrian was surprisingly well-read, his opinions sharp and occasionally funny. He asked about her background, and she gave him the sanitized version. State school, first-generation college graduate, built her career from nothing. He didn't press for details she wasn't willing to give. Why PR? He asked at one point. Control, she said without thinking. I like being the one who decides what story gets told, what people believe. He smiled. We're more alike than you think. We're nothing alike. Aren't we? You manipulate perception. I manipulate reality. Same goal, different methods. You kill people, only when necessary. He said it so casually, like he was talking about the weather. You think your hands are clean, Alara? You've buried scandals, destroyed reputations, ruined lives. The only difference between us is that I'm honest about what I am. She wanted to argue, wanted to draw a line between his violence and her carefully crafted lies, but she couldn't find the words. I need to go, she said finally. Not yet. He reached across the table, fingers brushing hers. One more question. Why did you kiss me that night? It was a dare. That's the excuse. What's the real reason? She pulled her hand back. I wanted to do something reckless, something that didn't make sense. I was tired of being careful. And did it work? She met his eyes. I don't know yet. They left the restaurant together, stepping out into the cool night air. Adrian's driver was already waiting, but he waved the man off. I'll walk you to your car. I can take care of myself. I know. He fell into step beside her anyway. But humor me. They walked in silence for a block. Then Alara stopped, turning to face him. This can't last. Whatever this is, this arrangement. I'm not built for your world. You're doing fine. I'm surviving. That's not the same thing. Adrian stepped closer, and she felt her breath catch. He was too close, invading her space in a way that should have been threatening, but somehow wasn't. You're right, he said quietly. This can't last. Eventually, you'll have to decide whether you're with me or against me, whether you're a partner or a prisoner. But until then, he brushed a strand of hair from her face, the gesture surprisingly gentle. Until then, let's see how far we can push this. He walked away before she could respond, disappearing into the shadows like he'd never been there at all. Alara stood alone on the sidewalk, heart racing, mind spinning. She'd crossed a line tonight, not a professional one. She'd crossed plenty of those already, but a personal one. Because for a moment, standing there with Adrian Cade looking at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered, she hadn't wanted to leave, and that terrified her more than anything else. The realization hit Alara 3 days later while she was reviewing surveillance footage from one of Adrian's safe houses. She'd been looking for signs of a leak, someone feeding information to a rival organization, when she noticed something odd in the timestamp logs. The footage had been edited. Not professionally, whoever did it left gaps, inconsistencies that would be invisible to anyone not looking for them. She pulled up the original files, cross-referenced them with security reports, and felt her stomach drop. The edits lined up perfectly with nights she'd been at the Ascent. The night of the dare. Maya's insistence they go to that specific club. The way her friend had pointed out Adrian with such precise timing. Alara sat back in her chair, the pieces clicking together with sickening clarity. Maya had known. Not just known. She'd orchestrated it. The dare, the kiss, the entire disaster that had swallowed Alara's life whole. Her best friend had led her straight to Adrian Cade, like a lamb to slaughter. Her phone buzzed. Adrian's name lit up the screen. I need you at the Paramount building. Now. I'm working on... Forget it. This is more important. She wanted to tell him about Maya, about the surveillance footage, about the betrayal burning through her chest like acid. Instead, she grabbed her coat and went. The Paramount building stood in the financial district, all glass and steel and money. Adrian owned the top 3 floors through one of his shell companies, using the space for meetings that required a veneer of legitimacy. When Alara arrived, his assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Iris, who looked like she could kill you with a spreadsheet, escorted her to a conference room. Adrian stood at the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city sprawled below. 2 other men sat at the table. One she recognized as Victor, Adrian's head of security, and another she didn't know. The stranger was older, maybe 60, with the kind of face that suggested he'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by any of it. "Alara," Adrian said without turning around. "Meet Jonathan Pierce, federal prosecutor." Her blood went cold. "What? Relax." Adrian finally looked at her, and there was something almost amused in his expression. "He's not here for you, he's here for me." Pierce stood, extending a hand. "Ms. Voss, I've heard a lot about your work." She didn't take his hand. "I don't talk to federal prosecutors." "Even when they're offering a deal?" Pierce withdrew his hand, unbothered by the rejection. "I'm here to propose an arrangement. Mr. Cade has information I want. In exchange, certain investigations into his business operations would be deprioritized." Alara looked at Adrian. "You're cooperating with the feds?" "I'm protecting my interests. There's a difference." He moved to the table, sitting with the casual ease of someone who'd negotiated with federal prosecutors before. "Pierce wants names, people higher up the food chain. I give him what he needs, he looks the other way on my operations." "That's not how this works," Alara said. "The moment you give him anything, he owns you. Which is why you're here." Adrian gestured to an empty chair. "Sit. Help me figure out how to manage this without ending up in handcuffs." She wanted to refuse, wanted to walk out and never come back. But Pierce was watching her with the predatory focus of someone who'd spent decades putting people in prison, and she knew, with absolute certainty, that if she left now, she'd be implicated in whatever deal they struck. Adrian had made sure of that. She sat. The negotiation took 3 hours. Pierce wanted names of Adrian's suppliers, distributors, anyone connected to the larger drug trafficking network. Adrian countered with information about corrupt city officials, politicians on various payrolls, cops who looked the other way for the right price. They circled each other like sharks, testing boundaries, looking for weaknesses. Alara watched it all, taking notes, occasionally interjecting when the conversation veered into territory that could be legally problematic. She crafted language that was technically truthful but strategically vague, statements that would satisfy Pierce without actually giving him anything useful. It was a masterclass in manipulation, and by the time Pierce left, seemingly satisfied with what he'd gotten, Alara felt like she'd just run a marathon. "You did well," Adrian said once they were alone. "That was a mistake. Pierce isn't going to stop. He'll use whatever you gave him as leverage for more." "I know. Then why? Because now I know what he wants, what he thinks he can get. And that makes him predictable." Adrian loosened his tie, the first sign of tension she'd seen from him all day. "Predictable people are easy to manage." "You're playing with fire." "I've been playing with fire my whole life, so have you." He looked at her, and there was something almost gentle in his gaze. "You think this is new for you? You've been doing this for years, Alara. The only difference is the clients." "My clients don't kill people, don't they?" He moved closer, and she forced herself not to back away. "You buried a story about a pharmaceutical CEO whose negligence killed 12 people. You covered up sexual harassment allegations against a tech mogul. You've protected people who've done worse than I have. They just do it with lawyers and press releases instead of guns." She wanted to argue, wanted to find the line that separated her work from his, but the words stuck in her throat. "I found something," she said instead. "In the surveillance footage, someone edited the logs from the night we met." Adrian's expression shifted, curiosity sharpening into focus. "Who?" "I don't know yet, but the edits line up with Maya's timeline. She knew where you'd be that night. She made sure I'd see you. Your friend set you up." "Apparently." The betrayal felt fresh again, cutting deeper than it should. "I need to know why." "So do I." Adrian pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. "I'll have Victor look into it. If Maya was working with someone, we'll find out who." "She's my best friend." "She was your best friend. Past tense." He put the phone away, studying her with that unnerving intensity. People you trust are the most dangerous kind of liability, Alara. Remember that. She left the Paramount building feeling hollowed out, like someone had scooped out everything soft and left only the sharp edges. Her phone rang before she reached her car. Maya's name flashed on the screen. She almost didn't answer. "Hey," Maya said, her voice bright and oblivious. "Want to grab dinner tonight? I feel like we haven't really talked in forever." "I'm busy." "Come on, Elle. You're always busy now. I miss you." "I miss you too." The lie came easily. "But I really can't tonight. Rain check?" There was a pause, just long enough to make Alara wonder if Maya knew something was wrong. Then her friend laughed, the sound forced. "Sure, rain check. Just don't forget about me, okay?" "I won't." Another lie. Alara hung up and sat in her car, hands shaking. She didn't know what Maya had gotten herself into, or why, or how deep the betrayal went. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Their friendship was over. It had ended the moment Maya pointed her toward Adrian Cade and smiled like it was a joke. Her new phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. "Victor found something. Meet me at the warehouse. 1 hour. Nuts." She drove to the warehouse on autopilot, her mind cycling through possibilities. Maya worked in marketing for a tech startup. She had no connection to organized crime, no reason to be involved in Adrian's world, unless someone had gotten to her, unless someone had used her to get to Alara. But why? What was she worth to anyone? The warehouse was quieter than usual. Most of Adrian's crew had cleared out, leaving just Victor and a handful of guards. Adrian stood near a computer terminal, Victor beside him, both staring at a screen. "Tell me," Alara said without preamble. "Your friend Maya has been receiving payments from an offshore account for the past 6 months, Victor said, his voice flat and professional. 20,000 a month, like clockwork. The account traces back to a shell company owned by Marcus Sterling." The name hit her like a slap. "My business partner?" "Former business partner," Adrian corrected. "He sold his stake in your firm to me, remember?" "Why would Marcus pay Maya? That's what we're trying to figure out." Adrian pulled up a series of financial records, transactions that painted a damning picture. "The payment started around the time your divorce was finalized. Marcus needed cash. His gambling debts were piling up. Someone offered him a deal, 40,000 a month if he could deliver you." "Deliver me where?" "To me." Adrian's voice was calm, almost clinical. "Someone wanted you in my orbit, Alara. They used Marcus to manipulate your business, and Maya to manipulate you personally. The dare, the kiss, all of it was engineered." She felt the room tilt. "Who?" "I don't know yet, but whoever it is knows enough about my operation to be dangerous." He closed the laptop, turning to face her fully. "You're not just a crisis manager, Alara. You're a target. Or bait. Maybe both." "That doesn't make sense. I'm nobody. I don't have information worth—" "You have access to me." Adrian stepped closer, and for once, she didn't pull away. "You're inside my operation. You know how I work, who I work with, where the money flows. If someone wanted leverage against me, you'd be the perfect tool." "So this whole thing, everything since that night, was a setup?" "Looks that way." She wanted to scream, wanted to break something. Instead, she laughed, the sound bitter and hollow. "I thought I was the one manipulating stories. Turns out, I'm just a character in someone else's." "Not anymore." Adrian's hand came up, fingers curling around her wrist, not restraining, just present. "You know too much now. Which means you're either with me or you're a liability I need to eliminate." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality check." His grip tightened slightly. "I don't kill people I can use, Alara, and you're very useful, but that protection only lasts as long as you're on my side. And if I'm not, then we'll find out how good you really are at crisis management." She pulled her wrist free, stepping back. "I need to talk to Maya." "No, you don't. She's a liability. She was paid to set you up, which means she either knew what she was doing or she's too stupid to realize she was being used. Either way, she's dangerous." Adrian's voice was firm, final. "You go near her, you tip off whoever's pulling the strings. Is that what you want?" "I want answers." "So do I. But we're not getting them from Maya." He pulled up another file on the computer, this one showing surveillance photos of Marcus Sterling. We start with him. He's the one who sold you out. Let's find out who he sold you to. Marcus Sterling lived in a condo downtown, the kind of place that looked expensive but was really just overpriced. Alara stood outside his building at 2 in the morning, Adrian beside her, feeling like she was about to step off a cliff. You don't have to do this, Adrian said. I can handle it. He was my partner. I need to hear it from him. He'll lie. I'll know. They took the elevator to the 14th floor in Shentz. Adrian had somehow acquired a key card, Alara didn't ask how, and they let themselves into Marcus's condo without knocking. The apartment was dark, quiet except for the sound of someone snoring in the bedroom. Adrian moved through the space like he'd done this 1,000 times, checking corners, clearing rooms. Alara followed, her heart hammering against her ribs. When they reached the bedroom, Adrian flipped on the lights. Marcus jerked awake, blinking in confusion. Then he saw them, and the color drained from his face. Alara? What the hell? Sit up, Adrian said, his voice cold and flat. Hands where I can see them. Marcus scrambled to comply, pressing himself against the headboard. I don't have any money. If this is about the loans, it's not about the loans. Alara stepped forward, keeping her voice steady. It's about why you sold our company to a shell corporation owned by a criminal. I didn't know. Stop! Adrian pulled a gun from inside his jacket, not pointing it at Marcus, but making its presence very clear. You knew exactly what you were doing. You needed money. Someone offered it, and you didn't ask questions. Now you're going to answer ours. Marcus's eyes darted between them, panic making his voice high and tight. I didn't have a choice. I was drowning. The gambling, the debts. I was going to lose everything. So you sold me instead, Alara said. It wasn't supposed to be like this. They just wanted information, access to your client list, your contacts. I didn't know it would... He stopped, seeming to realize he was making it worse. I'm sorry, Elle. I'm so sorry. Who approached you? I don't know. It was all done through intermediaries. Phone calls, encrypted messages. I never met anyone face to face. Adrian moved closer to the bed, and Marcus shrank back. You're lying. I'm not, I swear. You met with someone. 4 months ago, at the Garrison. Corner booth, cash payment. Adrian's voice was utterly calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. I have security footage. Want to try again? Marcus's face crumpled. His name was Reed, that's all I know. He said he worked for someone who wanted leverage in the city. Said if I helped, my debts would disappear. Describe him. Describe tall, maybe 6'2". Dark hair, expensive suit. Had a scar here. Marcus touched his left eyebrow. He knew things, personal things, about my gambling, my debts, my family. It was like he'd been watching me for months. Alara felt cold. What did you tell him about me? Everything. Marcus wouldn't meet her eyes. Your clients, your methods, your contacts, how you operate, what you're good at. He finally looked up, and there were tears on his face. He said you wouldn't get hurt, that it was just business. And you believed him? I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Adrian said. You just made the wrong one. He looked at Alara. We're done here. They left Marcus sobbing in his bedroom, and Alara felt nothing. No anger, no sympathy, no satisfaction. Just a cold, hollow certainty that the life she'd known was gone, burned to ash by people she'd trusted. Outside, Adrian handed her the gun. She stared at it. What's this for? Protection. Marcus knows we were here. If he calls his contact, this Reed, you'll be a target. You need to be able to defend yourself. I don't know how to use a gun. Then learn. He closed her fingers around the grip, his hand warm over hers. I'm not letting anyone hurt you, Alara. But I can't be with you every second. You need to be able to take care of yourself. She wanted to give it back, wanted to tell him this wasn't her life, that she wasn't cut out for guns and violence and midnight interrogations. But the weight of the weapon in her hand felt strangely solid, real, like it was anchoring her to a truth she'd been avoiding. Who's Reed? She asked instead. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Adrian started walking toward his car, and she fell into step beside him. If someone's trying to use you against me, they've made a serious mistake. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. He stopped, turning to face her under the streetlight. Aren't you? You work for me. You live in my world. You carry my secrets. What else would you call it? Coercion. Fine. Call it whatever helps you sleep at night. He reached out, brushing a thumb across her jaw. But don't pretend you haven't chosen this, Alara. You could have run a dozen times by now. Gone to the police, disappeared, started over somewhere else. But you're still here. Because you'll destroy my life if I leave. That's part of it, but it's not all of it. His hand dropped, and he stepped back. You're still here because some part of you wants to be, because you're good at this. Because for the first time in your life, you're not pretending to be something you're not. She wanted to deny it, wanted to tell him he was wrong, but the words wouldn't come. They drove back to the city in silence, and when Adrian dropped her off at her apartment, he didn't say goodbye. Just watched her walk inside, then disappeared into the night. Alara stood in her apartment, staring at the gun in her hand. She should have been horrified, should have been planning her escape. Instead, she felt awake, alert, like she'd been sleepwalking through her entire life and had only just opened her eyes. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Hello? Ms. Voss. The voice was male, smooth, cultured, unfamiliar. We haven't been formally introduced, but I believe we have mutual acquaintances. Marcus Sterling, Maya Chen, Adrian Cade. Her grip tightened on the phone. Who is this? Someone who's very interested in your current employment situation. I'd like to meet. Why would I do that? Because I can answer the questions you're asking about why you were brought into Adrian's world, about what happens next. The voice paused. And because if you don't, the people you care about start dying. Your friend Maya, for instance. It would be unfortunate if something happened to her. Don't touch her. Then meet with me tomorrow night. There's a gallery opening in Chelsea, the Matthias collection. Come alone. I'll find you. The line went dead. Alara stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Someone was threatening Maya. The same Maya who'd betrayed her, who'd taken money to set her up. She should have felt nothing, should have let whoever this was clean up their own mess. But Maya had been her friend. For years, before all of this, before Adrian and the lies and the blood money. And despite everything, Alara couldn't quite let that go. She called Adrian. He answered on the first ring. Someone just called me. Threatened Maya if I don't meet with them tomorrow night. Where? A gallery in Chelsea. The Matthias collection. Don't go. I have to. Alara, don't. They know about Marcus, about the setup. Whoever this is, they're the one pulling the strings. This might be our only chance to find out what they want. She heard him exhale, frustration clear even through the phone. Fine, but you're not going alone. They said, I don't care what they said. You walk into that gallery, I'm there. You just won't see me. His voice softened slightly. I meant what I said earlier. I protect what's mine. Even if I'm not? Especially then. He hung up before she could respond. Alara set the phone down, looking at the gun still clutched in her other hand. Tomorrow night, she'd walk into a trap. She'd face whoever had orchestrated this whole disaster, and she'd do it knowing that Adrian Cade, a man who trafficked drugs and killed without hesitation, was the only person she could trust. The irony wasn't lost on her. She spent the next day preparing. She researched the Matthias collection, a new gallery specializing in contemporary art with suspiciously wealthy investors. She reviewed everything she knew about Marcus's mysterious contact, about the timeline of her manipulation, about the gaps in her knowledge. She practiced with the gun Adrian had given her, firing at paper targets in her apartment until her hands stopped shaking. By the time evening arrived, she felt as ready as she'd ever be. The gallery opening was crowded, filled with the kind of people who spent thousands on abstract paintings and called it investment. Alara wore black, simple, elegant, forgettable. She moved through the crowd, champagne glass in hand, waiting for someone to make contact. Ms. Voss? The voice came from behind her and she turned. The man was exactly as Marcus had described. Tall, dark-haired, expensive suit, scar through his left eyebrow. He smiled, extending a hand. Reed, a pleasure to finally meet. She didn't take his hand. You threatened my friend. I motivated you to attend. There's a difference. He gestured toward a quieter corner of the gallery. Shall we talk somewhere more private? I'm fine here. Suit yourself. Reed stepped closer, lowering his voice. You've become quite valuable, Ms. Voss. My employer is very impressed with your work. Who's your employer? Someone who recognizes talent when they see it. You've done in 3 weeks what most people couldn't do in 3 years. Adrian Cade trusts you, relies on you. That makes you incredibly useful. To who? To anyone who wants leverage against Adrian. Reed's smile widened. You see, Adrian has been a problem for certain interests in this city. Too powerful, too unpredictable. My employer would like to redirect his attention, and you're the key to making that happen. I'm not betraying him. I'm not asking you to. I'm offering you a choice. Reed pulled a phone from his pocket, showing her a photo. It was Maya, sitting in what looked like a basement, hands tied, fear written across her face. Your friend is currently in a secure location. She's unharmed. Whether she stays that way depends on your cooperation. Alara's blood ran cold. What do you want? Information. Specifically about Adrian's meeting with federal prosecutor Jonathan Pierce. What did they discuss? What deal was made? Don't lie to me, Ms. Voss. You were there. You took notes. You helped broker the arrangement. I want to know what Adrian gave Pierce and what he got in return. She could lie, could feed Reed false information. But Maya's terrified face stared up at her from the phone screen, and Alara realized with sick certainty that Reed would know if she lied, would hurt Maya, would kill her. Adrian gave Pierce names, she said quietly. Low-level dealers, corrupt city officials, nothing that would actually damage his operation. In exchange for protection, Pierce agreed to deprioritize certain investigations. Reed's smile was sharp. See? That wasn't so hard? Now one more thing. Adrian has a meeting scheduled with his suppliers next week. Location, time, who's attending. I need all of it. I don't have that information. Then get it. He put the phone away, straightening his cuffs. You have 48 hours. Text the details to this number. He handed her a card with nothing but a phone number printed on it. Do this and Maya goes free. Refuse and I'll send you pieces of her until you cooperate. Am I clear? Crystal. Good. Reed started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Ms. Voss? Don't bother telling Adrian about this conversation. I'll know, and Maya will pay the price. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving Alara standing alone, the card burning in her hand. She left the gallery immediately, stepping out into the cool night air. Adrian materialized from the shadows almost instantly, his expression dark. What did he want? Information about your meeting with Pierce, and details about your supplier meeting next week. What did you tell him? The truth about Pierce. I didn't have a choice. He has Maya. She handed him the card. He wants the supplier meeting details in 48 hours. Adrian studied the card, then looked at her. You understand what this means. Someone's trying to sabotage your operation from the inside, using me as their mole. Exactly. He pocketed the card, his jaw tight. We're going to give them what they want. What? Not the real details. We'll feed them false information. Set up a decoy meeting. When they move to intercept, we'll know who we're dealing with. And Maya? We'll get her back. But first, we need to make them think you're cooperating. He pulled her into a doorway, out of sight of the street. This is going to get dangerous, Alara. More dangerous than anything we've done so far. If you want out, if you want me to handle this without you, now's the time to say so. She should have said yes. Should have walked away and let Adrian clean up the mess she'd stumbled into. But Maya was in a basement somewhere, terrified and helpless, because Alara had kissed a mob boss on a dare, because she'd been naive enough to think she could play games in a world where the stakes were life and death. I'm in, she said. Tell me what to do. Adrian's expression shifted, something like pride flickering across his face. First, we're going to make them believe you're scared, compliant. You'll text Reed with partial information, enough to seem cooperative, not enough to be useful. That buys us time. Then what? Then we find out where they're holding Maya, and we go get her. Just like that? Just like that. He stepped closer, and she could feel the heat radiating off him. I told you, Alara, I protect what's mine. That includes you, and by extension, the people you care about. Even if they betrayed me? Even then. His hand came up, cupping her face. Because you care about her. and that means something. She wanted to pull away, wanted to maintain the distance she'd been desperately clinging to, but standing there in the shadows with Adrian Cade looking at her like she was the only thing that mattered, Alara felt that distance collapse entirely. She kissed him, not because of a dare this time, not because she was drunk or reckless or trying to prove something, but because she wanted to. Because in the middle of betrayal and violence and a life spiraling out of control, he was the only solid thing she had to hold on to. Adrian responded immediately, his other hand sliding into her hair, pulling her closer. The kiss was different from that first one in the club, deeper, hungrier, edged with something that felt dangerously close to need. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "That complicates things," he said quietly. "Everything's already complicated." "Fair point." He pulled back slightly, his thumb brushing over her bottom lip. "We should go. Victor's tracking Reed's phone. If we move fast, we might be able to find Maya tonight." They spent the next 6 hours in Adrian's command center, a nondescript office building that housed his entire surveillance operation. Victor had traced Reed's phone to a location in the industrial district, an abandoned warehouse that fit every cliché of a criminal hideout. Adrian assembled a team, 6 men who moved with military precision, and Alara watched it all with a growing sense of unreality. "You're staying here," Adrian told her as they prepared to leave. "Like hell I am." "Alara, she's my friend. I'm coming." "You're not trained for this. You'll be a liability." "Then train me, or let me be a liability. But I'm not sitting here while you rescue someone I was supposed to protect." Adrian stared at her for a long moment, then handed her a Kevlar vest. "Put this on. Stay behind me. If shooting starts, you hit the ground and don't move until I tell you. Understood?" "Understood." The warehouse was exactly as dark and ominous as she'd expected. Adrian's team moved through it like ghosts, silent and efficient, clearing rooms with practiced ease. Alara followed Adrian, heart hammering, the gun he'd given her heavy in her hand. They found Maya in a room on the second floor, tied to a chair, blindfolded and gagged. She was crying, whole body shaking with fear. Alara rushed forward, but Adrian caught her arm. "Wait, let Victor clear the room first." Victor checked for explosives, for tripwires, for anything that might be a trap. When he gave the all clear, Alara finally reached Maya, pulling off the blindfold and gag. "Elle?" Maya's voice was raw, broken. "Oh God, Elle, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "It's okay. We're getting you out." "No, you don't understand. They made me. They said they'd hurt my family. I didn't want to." "Maya, stop. We need to move." Adrian cut the ropes binding her wrists, and Maya collapsed into Alara's arms, sobbing. They got her to her feet, supporting her weight between them, and started back toward the exit. That's when the shooting started. Gunfire erupted from somewhere below, bullets tearing through walls, sending splinters of wood and concrete flying. Adrian shoved both women behind a support beam, returning fire with cold precision. His team scattered, taking defensive positions, and suddenly the warehouse was a war zone. "Stay down," Adrian ordered, then moved to join his men. Alara crouched behind the beam, Maya trembling beside her, trying to make sense of the chaos. There were at least a dozen attackers, maybe more, and they weren't trying to capture anyone. They were trying to kill. "We need to move," Alara said, pulling Maya to her feet. "Come on." They ran for a side exit, keeping low, bullets whining past their heads. Alara's hands shook, adrenaline turning everything sharp and bright and terrifying. They reached the door and she yanked it open. Reed stood on the other side, gun raised. "Going somewhere?" Alara reacted on instinct. She raised her own gun and fired. The recoil knocked her back a step, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Reed staggered, blood blooming across his shoulder, shock written across his face. He tried to raise his weapon again, and Alara fired twice more. Center mass, just like Adrian had shown her. Reed dropped. Alara stood frozen, staring at the body, unable to process what she'd just done. She'd killed someone, actually pulled the trigger and ended a life. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Elle," Maya's voice pulled her back. "We have to go." They ran into the night, leaving the warehouse and the gunfire and Reed's body behind. Adrian caught up with them 3 blocks away, blood on his shirt, but otherwise unharmed. "You okay?" he asked Alara. She couldn't speak, could only nod, numb and distant. She shot Reed, Maya said. He was going to kill us, and she just... I know. Adrian pulled Alara into his arms, and she let him, too shattered to resist. You did good. You survived. That's what matters. But Alara wasn't sure anymore. She'd survived. She'd killed. And somewhere in the space between those two facts, she'd become something she didn't recognize. Something dangerous. Something that belonged in Adrian Cade's world after all. The safe house was a penthouse in a building Adrian owned under a name that didn't exist on any public record. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, bulletproof glass that cost more than most people's cars. Maya sat on the leather couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. A medic Adrian had called checked her over. Bruises, dehydration, shock, but nothing broken. Physically, she'd survive. Alara stood at the window, watching the city lights blur through her reflection. Her hands had stopped shaking an hour ago, but she could still feel the gun's recoil, could still see Reed's face as he fell. She'd killed someone. The fact kept circling her brain, looking for somewhere to land, finding nothing. You should eat something, Adrian said from behind her. Not hungry. Doesn't matter, you're in shock. Food helps. She turned to look at him. He'd changed shirts, the bloody one discarded somewhere, and looked as composed as ever. Like a firefight in a warehouse was just another Tuesday for him. Maybe it was. How do you do it? She asked. Do what? Kill someone and then just move on, like it didn't happen. Adrian was quiet for a moment, studying her. You think I don't feel it? Do you? Every time. He moved closer, his voice dropping. The first one was when I was 19, self-defense or close enough. I threw up afterward. Couldn't sleep for a week, but I learned something important. Feeling guilty doesn't bring them back. It just makes you weak. So you feel it, you file it away, and you keep moving. That's not healthy. Nothing about this life is healthy. But it's survival. He reached out, fingers brushing her arm. You did what you had to do, Alara. Reed was going to kill you and Maya both. You saved her life, remember that part. She wanted to believe him, wanted to find comfort in the justification. But all she could think about was how easy it had been, how she hadn't hesitated, how some part of her had known exactly what to do, like it had been waiting for permission. I need to talk to Maya, she said. Not tonight. Let her rest. She owes me answers. And she'll give them to you tomorrow. Tonight you both need sleep. He gestured toward a hallway. There are bedrooms. Pick one. Victor's team is on security. No one gets in here without going through them first. Alara nodded, too exhausted to argue. She walked down the hall, found a room with a bed that looked untouched, and collapsed onto it fully clothed. She expected nightmares, expected to see Reed's face every time she closed her eyes. Instead, she sank into dreamless black and didn't wake until morning light cut through the curtains. The smell of coffee pulled her out of bed. She found Adrian in the kitchen, cooking eggs like this was normal, like they were normal people in a normal apartment instead of a crime lord, and his unwilling accomplice hiding from whoever had orchestrated the warehouse attack. You cook? She said. Occasionally. Surprised? A little. I'm full of surprises. He slid a plate across the counter. Eat. We have work to do. She sat, picking at the food. What kind of work? The kind where we figure out who Reed was working for and why they want me dead. Adrian poured coffee, his movements precise and controlled. Reed wasn't the top. He was middle management at best. Someone hired him, gave him resources, pointed him at you. We need to know who. His phone? Victor's working on it. Encrypted, but not well. We'll have access by this afternoon. He leaned against the counter, watching her. You know what this means, right? The warehouse wasn't about Maya. It was about eliminating witnesses. They wanted you dead. Because I know too much. Because you're valuable to me. As long as you're alive, you're leverage someone can use. Dead, you're just a problem solved. His expression was unreadable. I should have seen this coming. Should have protected you better. You got us out. Barely. And Reed's employer knows we killed their point man. They'll escalate, which means we need to move first. Maya appeared in the doorway, looking pale and hollow. Her eyes found Alara, and something raw and broken crossed her face. Can we talk? She asked quietly. Adrian straightened. I'll give you privacy. No! Alara's voice was sharp. You stay. Whatever she has to say, you need to hear it too. Maya flinched, but didn't argue. She sat at the far end of the counter, hands folded in her lap like a child waiting to be punished. "I'm sorry," she started. "I know that's not enough, but I—" "Why?" Alara cut her off. "Why did you do it? They threatened my family, my parents, my sister. They had photos, addresses, routines. They knew everything." Maya's voice cracked. "A man came to my apartment 6 months ago. Said he represented people who needed a favor. If I helped, my family would be safe. If I didn't—" She stopped, wiping at her eyes. "I didn't want to. You have to believe me." "What did they ask you to do?" "Get you to the Ascent that night. Make sure you saw Adrian. Convince you to approach him. It was supposed to be harmless. Just a stupid dare, nothing serious. I didn't know it would turn into this." "Who was the man?" "He called himself Reed, same guy from last night." Maya looked at Adrian. "He said his employer wanted someone close to you. Someone smart enough to be useful, but naive enough to manipulate. Alara fit the profile." "And the payments?" Alara asked. "$20,000 a month?" Maya's face crumpled. "I tried to refuse, but they threatened. They said they'd hurt my sister. She's only 16, Elle. I couldn't let them—" She broke down, sobbing into her hands. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to get hurt. I thought it would just be one night, one stupid dare, and then it would be over." Alara felt something cold settle in her chest. Maya had sold her out to protect her family. It made sense. It was even understandable, but it didn't change the fact that her best friend had handed her over to criminals like livestock. "Did you know about Marcus?" she asked. Maya shook her head. "Not until later. Reed mentioned him once, said he was useful. I didn't know he'd sold your company." Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression hardening. Victor cracked Reed's phone. "We have a location for his employer." "Where?" Alara asked. "The Grantham Hotel, penthouse suite, registered to a man named Thomas Vance." He looked at Maya. "Does that name mean anything to you?" "No, I've never heard it." "Then we're going to find out who he is." Adrian pocketed his phone, then turned to Maya. "You're going to stay here. Victor's team will keep you safe. But if you try to leave, if you contact anyone, if you do anything that puts Alara in danger, I'll finish what Reed started. Are we clear?" Maya nodded, terrified. Alara should have felt something. Pity, anger, vindication. Instead, she felt nothing at all. The friendship she'd valued for years had been a lie, built on money and threats and manipulation. Whatever they'd had was gone now, burned to ash in a warehouse firefight. "Let's go," she said to Adrian. They left Maya crying in the safe house and drove across the city in silence. Alara kept expecting to feel something, grief for the friendship she'd lost, rage at the betrayal, guilt over Reed's death. But there was only a cold, empty clarity. She understood now what Adrian had meant about filing things away. You felt it, acknowledged it, and moved on. Because stopping meant dying. The Grantham Hotel was old money and new wealth. The kind of place where billionaires kept mistresses and politicians made backroom deals. Adrian walked through the lobby like he owned it, and maybe he did. The desk staff didn't question him. The elevator operator didn't ask where they were going. They rode to the top floor in silence, and when the doors opened, Victor was waiting. "He's alone," Victor said. "No security, no staff, just him." "Confident or stupid?" Adrian asked. "Both, probably." They moved down the hallway, and Adrian knocked on the penthouse door. It opened almost immediately. Thomas Vance was in his 50s, silver hair and tailored suit, the kind of man who looked like he'd never broken a sweat in his life. He smiled when he saw them, like he'd been expecting visitors. "Mr. Cade, and you must be Miss Voss. Please, come in." The penthouse was obscenely luxurious. Art that probably cost more than Alara's apartment, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Vance gestured them toward a sitting area, pouring 3 glasses of whiskey without asking if they wanted any. "I suppose you're here about Reed," he said pleasantly. "Among other things," Adrian said, not touching the whiskey. "You tried to have us killed." A regrettable miscalculation. Reed was supposed to extract information, not start a war. His initiative exceeded his authority. Vance sipped his drink, unbothered. "I apologize for any inconvenience." "Inconvenience," Alara repeated flatly. "You kidnapped my friend, tried to kill us, and you're calling it an inconvenience? I'm trying to be civil, Ms. Voss. Would you prefer I be honest?" Vance set down his glass. You're a problem. You've made Adrian Cade vulnerable. That makes you valuable to people who want to see him removed from power. I'm one of those people. Why? Because Adrian controls too much of this city. Too many politicians, too many police, too many judges. He's built an empire that's untouchable through conventional means. But you, he pointed at her, you're his weakness. He cares about you, protects you. That makes him predictable. And predictable men make mistakes. You're wrong, Alara said. I'm not his weakness. Aren't you? He just stormed a warehouse to save your friend, killed 6 men to protect you, put his entire operation at risk because you asked him to. Vance smiled. That's not rational behavior, Mr. Cade. That's emotion. And emotion is a liability you can't afford. Adrian's expression was ice. What do you want? Originally, I wanted leverage, control over your operations through Ms. Voss, but that plan died with Reed. Vance stood, moving to the window. So now I'm offering you a deal. Walk away, retire, sell your territory to me at a fair price, and I'll ensure you and Ms. Voss both live long, comfortable lives. Refuse, and I'll dismantle everything you've built piece by piece. You don't have the resources. I have the federal government, specifically Federal Prosecutor Jonathan Pierce. He works for me now, has for years. That information you gave him about corrupt officials, I already knew about them. They worked for me too. You handed me exactly what I needed to consolidate power. Vance turned back to them, his smile widening. You've been playing checkers, Adrian. I've been playing chess. Alara felt the room tilt. Pierce was compromised. The deal Adrian had made was a trap. Everything they'd done to protect his operation had actually strengthened Vance's position. You're lying, she said. Am I? Call Pierce. Ask him who he reports to. Or better yet, Vance pulled out his phone, dialed a number, put it on speaker. Pierce answered on the 3rd ring. Vance, this isn't a good time. I have Adrian Cade and Alara Voss in my suite. They seem to think our arrangement isn't real. Would you care to clarify? There was a long pause. Then Pierce's voice came through, tired and resigned. It's real. I've been feeding Vance information on Adrian's operations for the past 2 years. The deal we made last week was approved by Vance. He wanted to know what Adrian was willing to trade. And now? Vance asked. Now I have enough evidence to indict him on RICO charges, whenever you give the word. Vance ended the call, looking pleased with himself. So you see, Mr. Cade, you have 2 options, retire peacefully or go to prison. Either way, your empire is mine. Adrian stood slowly, his movements controlled. You made a mistake. Oh? And what's that? You told me everything. Showed me your entire hand. That's arrogance. And arrogant men don't survive long in this business. He turned to Alara. We're leaving. They walked out without another word. In the elevator, Alara's mind raced. Pierce was dirty. Vance controlled the federal government. Adrian's entire operation was compromised. They'd lost before the fight even started. What do we do? She asked. We go to war. Adrian's voice was flat, final. Vance wants my empire. He can have it, after I burn it to the ground and bury him in the ashes. He has the feds. We can't fight that. Watch me. They spent the rest of the day planning. Adrian called in every favor he had, reached out to allies and enemies alike, built a coalition of people who had as much to lose as he did if Vance took control. Alara worked the phones, leveraging her PR contacts, finding journalists who'd be willing to run stories about federal corruption. They were building a counter-narrative, a weapon made of information and public pressure. By evening, they had the strategy. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but it was something. Adrian would leak evidence of Pierce's corruption to the media. Alara would coordinate the story, make sure it hit every major outlet simultaneously. And Victor would use his contacts in law enforcement to ensure the right people saw the evidence at the right time. This could destroy us, Alara said, reviewing the plan. If it doesn't work, we're both going to prison. Probably, Adrian agreed. But if we do nothing, we're dead anyway. Vance won't let us walk away. Then why did he offer the deal? Because he's arrogant. He wanted to see me broken, wanted to watch me give up everything I've built. Adrian looked at her, something fierce in his eyes. But I don't break, and neither do you. Not anymore. She wanted to argue, wanted to find a safer path, A way out that didn't involve destroying a federal prosecutor and declaring war on someone with unlimited resources. But Adrian was right. Vance had backed them into a corner. The only way out was through. "When do we start?" she asked. "Tomorrow night. There's a charity gala at the Riverside Hotel. Every politician and power broker in the city will be there, including Vance and Pierce." Adrian's smile was sharp and cold. "We're going to make a very public scene." "What kind of scene?" "The kind that gets people killed." The next evening, Alara stood in front of a mirror in a hotel room, staring at her reflection. The dress was designer, black silk that hugged her body like armor. Diamonds at her throat and wrists, borrowed from one of Adrian's shell companies. Hair and makeup done by professionals who didn't ask questions. She looked like money, like power, like someone who belonged in Adrian Cade's world. The woman staring back at her was a stranger. "You ready?" Adrian appeared behind her, adjusting his cufflinks. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than her car, looking every inch the legitimate businessman he pretended to be. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good. Remember the plan. We arrive together, make sure everyone sees us. When the speeches start, we'll position ourselves near Vance. And when the moment's right, I release the documents to the press." She'd been over this 100 times, but repetition was keeping the fear at bay. Every major outlet gets the evidence simultaneously. Pierce's corruption, Vance's criminal connections, the whole network. And then all hell breaks loose. Adrian turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. "This is going to get ugly, Alara. There will be violence. People will try to stop us. Are you prepared for that?" She thought about Reed, about the warehouse, about the gun in her hands, and the body on the floor, about how easy it had been to pull the trigger when survival demanded it. "Yes," she said, "I'm prepared." They arrived at the Riverside Hotel in a car that cost more than most houses, stepping out into a sea of cameras and reporters. Adrian played his role perfectly, confident, charming, the successful entrepreneur with the beautiful woman on his arm. Alara smiled for the cameras, knowing that by tomorrow morning, these same reporters would be calling her a criminal. Inside, the gala was exactly what she'd expected. Champagne, caviar, politicians glad-handing donors, the kind of event where policy was decided over dessert and futures were bought and sold between courses. Vance was holding court near the bar, surrounded by sycophants. Pierce stood nearby, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. "There's our target," Adrian murmured. "Stay close." They worked the room, Adrian introducing her to people she'd only seen on television. Senators, judges, business moguls who ran companies worth billions. Everyone smiled, everyone shook hands, and everyone was very careful not to acknowledge what Adrian really did for a living. At 8 o'clock, the speeches started. The mayor thanked everyone for their generosity. A senator talked about education reform. A tech billionaire announced a new philanthropic initiative. Alara barely heard any of it. She was focused on Vance, watching him watch Adrian, waiting for the perfect moment. It came during the third speech. Vance excused himself from his group, heading toward a private hallway off the main ballroom. Adrian caught her eye, nodded once. They followed. The hallway was empty, staff doors on one side, emergency exit on the other. Vance stood near the exit, phone to his ear, talking in low, urgent tones. He saw them coming and ended the call. "Mr. Cade, Miss Voss, enjoying the party?" "Not particularly," Adrian said, "but that's about to change." Vance's smile faltered. "I don't know what you think you're—" The explosion cut him off. The sound was deafening, a concussive blast that shook the entire building. Screams erupted from the ballroom, people stampeding toward exits. Smoke poured through the vents, thick and choking. Fire alarms shrieked. Adrian grabbed Alara's arm, pulling her toward the emergency exit. But Vance was faster. He produced a gun from inside his jacket, aiming it at Adrian's chest. "You think you're clever?" Vance's composure had cracked, rage twisting his features. "You think blowing up a ballroom is going to stop me?" "That wasn't me," Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. "But I'm going to guess it was someone who wants us all dead." More gunfire erupted from somewhere in the building. Not just one shooter, multiple. Automatic weapons, professional execution. This wasn't a robbery or terrorism, this was an assassination. "Your brother," Alara said suddenly, the pieces clicking together. "This is Dominic." Adrian's expression went flat. "Run!" Vance fired. The bullet caught Adrian in the shoulder, spinning him around. Alara screamed, but Adrian was already moving, tackling Vance to the ground. They grappled for the gun, and Alara stood frozen, watching them fight. More gunshots. Closer now. Someone was coming down the hallway. "Alara, go!" Adrian's voice was ragged, blood spreading across his shirt. She couldn't leave him. Wouldn't. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and swung it at Vance's head. The impact was solid, brutal. Vance went limp. Adrian staggered to his feet, clutching his shoulder. "We have to move." They ran through the emergency exit into a stairwell. Behind them, footsteps and voices, hunters closing in. Adrian was slowing down, blood loss making him unsteady. They made it down 3 floors before he collapsed against the wall. "Keep going," he said. "Get out of the building. I'm not leaving you." Alara, shut up. She tore off part of her dress, using it to bind his shoulder. The wound was bad, but not fatal. Not yet. "Who's Dominic?" "My brother. Half-brother, technically. We had a falling out years ago. He wanted control of the operation. I told him no." Adrian's breathing was labored. "He's been waiting for an opportunity to take me out. Vance must have offered him a deal. So everyone wants you dead. Welcome to my world." He tried to smile, failed. "Victor's team should be in the building by now. They'll extract us. We just need to survive until they get here." The stairwell door above them burst open. 3 men in tactical gear stormed through, weapons raised. Alara pulled Adrian behind a concrete support, her heart hammering. This was it. This was how they died. But instead of gunfire, she heard a different sound. Suppressed shots, bodies hitting the ground. The tactical team dropped one by one, and Victor emerged from the shadows, gun still raised. "You two look like hell," he said. "We're going to make it a habit," Adrian said. "Dominic?" 5 floors up with a dozen men. They've locked down the exits. We need to move fast. Victor helped Adrian to his feet, supporting his weight. "There's a service elevator on the ground floor. Go straight to the parking garage. My car's waiting." They made it to the elevator without encountering resistance, but Alara knew it wouldn't last. The building was a war zone, Dominic's men hunting them floor by floor. When the elevator doors opened on the parking level, Victor went first, clearing the path. "Clear. Let's move." They ran for the car, and Alara saw them too late. Dominic's men, 6 of them, emerging from behind parked vehicles. Victor opened fire, dropping 2 immediately, but the others scattered, returning fire, bullets sparking off concrete. "Get Adrian in the car," Victor shouted. Alara half-dragged Adrian to the vehicle, shoving him into the back seat. Bullets shattered the rear window, glass raining down. She dove in after him, and Victor threw himself into the driver's seat, engine roaring to life. They peeled out of the garage, more gunfire chasing them into the street. Victor drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, running red lights. In the back seat, Adrian's blood soaked through the makeshift bandage, his face pale. "Stay with me," Alara said, pressing her hands against the wound. "We're almost safe." "Define safe," Adrian muttered, but his eyes were closing. "Don't you dare pass out. I need you to tell me where we're going." Victor knows. They drove for 30 minutes, leaving the city behind, heading into industrial wasteland. Finally, Victor pulled up to what looked like an abandoned factory. He killed the engine, turning in his seat. "There's a medical facility inside, off books. They'll patch him up, no questions asked." He looked at Alara. "You did good tonight." "Reed wasn't the only person I've killed," she said quietly. "I know, you're adapting." Victor opened his door. "Welcome to the life." The medical facility was exactly what she'd expected. Sterile, efficient, run by people who'd seen worse. They stabilized Adrian, removed the bullet, gave him antibiotics and painkillers. By dawn, he was sitting up in bed, looking irritated at being confined. "Dominic?" he asked Victor. "Disappeared. He hit the gala, killed Vance and 12 others, then vanished. The feds are calling it a terrorist attack. No one's connecting it to you yet." "They will." Adriana looked at Alara. "Did you release the documents?" She held up her phone. "Every major outlet, Pierce's corruption, Vance's network, all of it. The story broke 2 hours ago. Pierce is already in custody." "Good." Adrian winced, adjusting his position. "What about Vance's organization?" "Chaos. Without him, they're falling apart. We might actually survive this." Victor pulled up a chair. "But Dominic is still out there, and he's not going to stop until you're dead. Then we find him first. Adrian's voice was steel. He came after me. He came after Alara. That's a mistake he doesn't get to walk away from. Alara sat beside his bed, exhaustion finally catching up to her. They'd survived an explosion, a firefight, and a high-speed chase. Adrian had taken a bullet meant for her. Vance was dead, Pierce was in custody, and the empire they'd been fighting to protect was hanging by a thread. And somehow, impossibly, she felt more alive than she ever had. "We're going to war with your brother," she said. "Yes." "This is insane." "Yes." "I should leave right now, walk away before this gets worse." Adrian looked at her, and despite the pain, despite the blood loss, his eyes were clear. "But you're not going to." She should have said yes, should have told him this was too much, that she'd reached her limit, that she wanted out. Instead, she took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. "No," she said. "I'm not." Because somewhere between the warehouse and the gala, between Reed's body and Vance's blood, Alara Voss had stopped being a victim of circumstance. She'd become a willing participant, a player in a game where the stakes were life and death and everything in between. She'd crossed the line Adrian had warned her about, and she couldn't see a way back. Adrian spent 3 days recovering, and in those 3 days, the city tore itself apart. Pierce's arrest triggered a cascade of investigations. Politicians resigned, police chiefs were indicted, judges disappeared. The corruption network Vance had built collapsed like a house of cards. And in the vacuum, every criminal organization in the city started grabbing for territory. Alara coordinated the media blitz from a laptop in Adrian's makeshift command center, keeping the story alive, feeding journalists new angles, making sure the narrative stayed focused on federal corruption instead of organized crime. She barely slept, barely ate. She was running on coffee and adrenaline, watching the empire burn and trying to salvage what she could from the ashes. "You need to rest," Victor said, finding her at 4 a.m, hunched over her computer. "I'm fine." "You're not. You've been awake for 30 hours. He set a bottle of water in front of her. "Adrian's worried about you." "Adrian's got bigger problems." "Yeah, and you're one of them." Victor sat across from her, his expression serious. "He's not going to say it, but you've become important to him. More important than the operation, maybe. That makes you vulnerable, both of you." "I didn't ask to be important." "Doesn't matter. You are. Which means Dominic is going to come after you to get to Adrian. You understand that, right?" She did. She'd understood it the moment Dominic's men opened fire at the gala. She was leverage now, a weakness Adrian's enemies could exploit. The smart move would be to disappear, to get as far from this disaster as possible. But the thought of leaving Adrian alone to face his brother made her stomach turn. "Where's Dominic?" she asked instead. "We don't know. He's gone underground, no communications, no sightings. It's like he vanished." Victor leaned back in his chair. "But he'll surface. Men like Dominic can't help themselves. They need to win publicly, need everyone to see them triumph. Then we give him a target, something he can't resist." "Like what?" "Like Adrian. Or me. Or both." Alara closed her laptop, an idea taking shape. "Dominic wants to prove he's stronger than his brother, right? More capable. More ruthless. So we make Adrian look weak, vulnerable. We bait Dominic into making a move, and when he does, we destroy him." Victor studied her for a long moment. "That's actually not a terrible plan. Risky as hell, but not terrible. I'm getting good at risky." "Yeah, you are." He stood, heading for the door. "Get some sleep. You're going to need it." But sleep didn't come. Alara lay in a borrowed bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Dominic. She'd never met him, didn't know what he looked like or how he operated. But she understood him anyway. He was the rejected son, the one who'd been passed over, told he wasn't good enough. That kind of resentment didn't fade. It festered. Adrian found her at dawn, standing at a window watching the sun rise over industrial wasteland. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much noise in my head." He moved to stand beside her, his arm still in a sling but otherwise looking better. "Victor told me about your plan, using us as bait. You think it's stupid. I think it's brilliant and dangerous, which seems to be your specialty now." He turned to face her. "But I'm not putting you in Dominic's crosshairs. If we're doing this, I'm the target, not you. He'll expect that. He knows you'd sacrifice yourself. So we do the opposite. We make it look like you're sacrificing me. Alara, listen, what if we stage a fight? Public, messy, make it look like you're cutting me loose to save your operation. Dominic hears about it, thinks I'm vulnerable, comes after me to hurt you. We'll be ready. Victor and his team, surveillance, the whole setup. When Dominic makes his move, we end this. Adrian was quiet for a long time, his jaw tight. If anything goes wrong, if he gets to you before we can stop him, that's the risk. I know. But we're out of options. Dominic won't stop until one of you is dead. This way, we control the battlefield. You've changed, Adrian said quietly. The woman I met 2 months ago would never suggest something like this. The woman you met 2 months ago didn't exist. This is who I've always been. I just didn't know it yet. She met his eyes. I'm not your weakness, Adrian. I'm your weapon. Let me be useful. He reached out, his good hand cupping her face. You're more than useful. He stopped, the words catching. You're everything. She kissed him before he could say more, before the weight of what they were becoming crushed them both. The kiss was different this time, slower, deeper, edged with something that felt dangerously close to permanence. When they broke apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. If we survive this, he said, we need to talk about what happens next, one catastrophe at a time. They spent the next 2 days planning. Alara would return to the city, make a very public appearance at her office. Adrian would leak information through his network that they'd had a falling out, that he'd decided she was too much of a liability. The story would spread fast. Criminals loved gossip almost as much as politicians did. You'll have a panic button, Victor explained, fitting a small device that looked like a key fob to her purse. Press it, and we'll have a team on your location in under 3 minutes. But you need to keep Dominic talking. Keep him engaged until we arrive. What if he just shoots me? He won't. Not immediately. Dominic likes to monologue, likes to prove he's smarter than everyone else. Use that. Victor handed her a small earpiece. And wear this. We'll be able to hear everything. The morning she returned to the city, Alara felt like she was walking toward an execution. She dressed carefully, professional but not defensive, confident but not cocky. She needed to look like someone who'd just been abandoned, someone vulnerable and alone. Her office at Sterling Communications felt like a museum of her old life. Everything was exactly as she'd left it weeks ago, but nothing felt the same. Jordan looked up when she walked in, relief flooding his face. Oh, thank God. We all thought, I'm fine. Is there coffee? I'll make some. But Alara, the news, the stories about you and Adrian Cade, people are saying you were working for him, that you've been covering up crimes, the phone won't stop ringing, clients are leaving, the board wants to meet. Tell them I quit. Jordan blinked. What? I'm done with this firm, with this life. Tell the board they can have it. She walked into her office, started packing personal items into a box. Photos, a few books, nothing that mattered. I'm leaving the city. Where are you going? I don't know yet. Somewhere Adrian Cade can't find me. It was a performance, and Jordan bought it completely. Within an hour, word would spread through the office. By afternoon, it would reach the streets. By evening, Dominic would hear that Adrian had cut his ties with her. She spent the day at the office, visible, predictable, waiting. Victor's team was positioned throughout the building, invisible but present. Adrian was monitoring from a remote location, watching through surveillance feeds. Everything was in place. Dominic came at 7 o'clock. Alara was alone in her office, most of the staff having gone home. She heard footsteps in the hallway, measured and deliberate, not Jordan's nervous shuffle. Someone else. The door opened without a knock. Dominic Cade looked nothing like his brother. Where Adrian was controlled and precise, Dominic was rough edges and barely contained violence. Taller, broader, with a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. He wore his cruelty like a badge of honor. Alara Voss, he said, closing the door behind him. We finally meet. She kept her voice steady. You must be Dominic. Adrian told you about me? He moved into the room, looking around like he was assessing property. How sweet. Did he tell you why we hate each other? Family issues, very relatable. Funny. He smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. I like you. I can see why Adrian got attached. You've got spine. What do you want? Information, specifically about Adrian's operation. where he keeps his money, who he's working with, what his plans are. You've been inside for weeks. You must know something useful. Alara's hand inched toward her purse, toward the panic button. And if I don't tell you, then I hurt you until you do. Or I kill you to hurt Adrian. Either works for me. Dominic pulled a gun from his jacket, setting it on her desk casually. But I'd rather not. Like I said, I like you. You're smart, resourceful, the kind of person I could use in my organization. You're offering me a job? Why not? Adrian's finished. His empire is crumbling. Pierce is gone. Vance is dead. And I'm about to take everything he's built. You could be part of that. Help me run things. I'd make it worth your while. She forced herself to laugh. You think I'd betray Adrian after everything we've been through? I think you're a survivor, and survivors know when to change sides. Dominic leaned against her desk. Adrian's weakness has always been loyalty. He thinks it matters, that it means something, but you know better. Loyalty is just a word people use to manipulate you into dying for them. Is that why you tried to kill him at the gala? I didn't try. I fully intended to succeed, but he got lucky. Always does. Dominic's expression darkened. Our father gave him everything. The business, the connections, the respect. Told me I wasn't ready, wasn't smart enough, wasn't ruthless enough. So I've spent 10 years proving him wrong. And when Adrian's dead, everyone will know I was always the stronger brother. Alara's fingers closed around the panic button. You're right about one thing. I am a survivor, which is why I'm not working for you. She pressed the button. Dominic lunged for the gun, but Alara was faster. She grabbed a heavy glass paperweight and threw it at his face. It connected with his temple, stunning him long enough for her to run for the door. She made it 3 steps before he caught her, yanking her back by her hair. Pain exploded across her scalp, and she screamed. Dominic slammed her against the wall, his forearm across her throat. You think you're clever? You think Adrian's going to save you? His breath was hot on her face. He's probably already gone. Probably sacrificed you to save himself. That's what he does. He uses people and throws them away. You don't know him at all. Alara drove her knee into his groin. Dominic doubled over and she ran. The hallway was empty. Where was Victor's team? Where was backup? She made it to the elevator, jabbing the button frantically. Behind her, Dominic recovered, gun in hand. You're dead, he snarled. The elevator doors opened. Adrian stood inside, gun raised. No, he said quietly. You are. He fired 3 times, center mass. Dominic staggered backward, shock replacing rage on his face. He tried to raise his own weapon, but Adrian was already moving, closing the distance, firing again. Dominic dropped. Adrian stepped over his brother's body, reaching for Alara. Are you hurt? I'm fine. How did you... Where's Victor? Right here. Victor emerged from the stairwell with his team. We were 10 seconds out. Adrian wasn't willing to wait. You weren't supposed to come, Alara said, looking at Adrian. This was supposed to be a controlled operation. Nothing about this was controlled. Dominic was going to kill you. Adrian's voice was raw. I'm not watching you die for a plan. Dominic coughed, blood bubbling on his lips. Adrian? Adrian turned back to his brother, crouching beside him. It's over. Father was right, Dominic whispered. You're stronger, always were. His eyes found Alara. Take care of him. He'll get himself killed otherwise. Then his eyes went empty. Alara stood frozen, watching Adrian stare at his brother's corpse. There was no satisfaction on his face, no triumph, just exhaustion and something that might have been grief. Victor, Adrian said without looking up, clean this up. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. I don't want any connection to us. Already on it, Adrian stood, taking Alara's hand. We're leaving. They drove in silence to one of Adrian's safe houses, a townhouse in a quiet neighborhood that looked like it belonged to a banker or a lawyer. Inside, Adrian poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed her one. Drink. She did, the alcohol burning down her throat. I'm sorry. About Dominic. Don't be. He made his choice. Adrian drained his glass, setting it down hard enough to crack. He was my brother, and I killed him. I should feel something, regret, guilt, anything, but all I feel is relief. That's not wrong. Isn't it? What kind of person kills their own brother and feels relieved? The kind who survives. The kind who protects what matters. She moved closer, taking his face in her hands. You did what you had to do, just like I did with Reed. We don't get the luxury of clean choices anymore. He pulled her against him, burying his face in her hair. I almost lost you tonight. But you didn't. Next time I might not be fast enough. Next time. There won't be a next time. Dominic was the last one. Vance is dead. Pierce is in prison. Your brother is gone. We won. Did we? Adrian pulled back, looking at her. My empire is in shambles. Half my people are dead or arrested. I've got federal investigators crawling up my ass. What exactly did we win? Each other. The words came out before she could stop them, raw and honest. We won each other. He kissed her then, and it felt like falling and flying at the same time. They stumbled toward the bedroom, shedding clothes and caution in equal measure. This wasn't romance, it was survival, two people clinging to each other in the wreckage of everything they'd destroyed. Afterward, lying in tangled sheets with dawn light creeping through the windows, Adrian traced patterns on her shoulder. I need to disappear for a while, he said. Let things cool down. Victor can run the operation until the heat dies off. Where will you go? I have properties, places no one knows about. I could be gone for months, maybe longer. Okay. Okay. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking at her. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? That I'll fall apart without you? That I can't survive on my own? She met his eyes. I'm not that person anymore, Adrian. You made sure of that. I know. Which is why I'm asking you to come with me. She stared at him, trying to process the offer. You want me to disappear, leave everything behind. There's nothing left to leave. Your firm is gone. Your reputation is destroyed. The only thing waiting for you in this city is federal investigators asking questions you can't answer. He took her hand. Come with me. We'll figure out what comes next together. And if I say no, then I go alone, and we see if what we have survives the distance. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. But I'd rather not find out. Alara thought about her apartment, her car, the life she'd built before Adrian Cade walked into it. None of it mattered anymore. None of it was real. The only real thing left was this, the man beside her, the choices they'd made, the blood on both their hands. How long do I have to decide? We leave in 2 days. Victor's arranging transport, new identities, everything we'll need. Adrian pulled her closer. But Alara, if you come with me, if you do this, there's no going back. You'll be tied to me permanently, wanted by the feds, hunted by anyone who wants revenge. Your old life will be completely over. My old life was over the moment I kissed you. That was a dare. This is a choice. I know. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of it settle over her. Ask me again in 2 days. She spent those 2 days tying up loose ends. She visited Maya, who was still staying at Adrian's safe house under Victor's protection. Her former friend looked better, healthier, less haunted, but the distance between them was insurmountable. I'm leaving, Alara told her. I don't know when I'll be back. Maybe never. With Adrian? Yes. Maya nodded, unsurprised. I figured. You love him, don't you? Alara wanted to deny it, wanted to say it was survival, pragmatism, anything but love. But lying to Maya now felt pointless. I think so. I don't know anymore. Everything's so twisted. For what it's worth, I think he loves you too. The way he looked at you that night at the warehouse. Maya stopped, wiping at her eyes. I'm sorry, Elle, for everything. I know sorry doesn't fix it, but it doesn't. But maybe someday it will. Alara stood, ready to leave. Take care of yourself, Maya. Get out of this city. Start over somewhere safe. You too. They didn't hug, didn't pretend the friendship was salvageable. Alara walked out knowing she'd never see Maya Chen again. The second day, she met with Jordan at a coffee shop. Her former assistant looked tired, overwhelmed by the chaos her departure had created. The firm's officially dissolving, he told her. Too many clients jumped ship. Too much damage to the brand. I'm sorry, I know you needed this job. It's fine. I already have offers from other agencies. Apparently crisis management experience is in high demand. He smiled weakly. Are you really leaving? Yeah, I am. Good. This city's toxic. Get out while you can. He slid an envelope across the table. Your final paycheck. and a recommendation letter if you ever need it. Not that you will. Why are you helping me? After everything that came out? Because you were a good boss, better than I deserved, and because I think you got dealt a terrible hand and played it as well as anyone could. Jordan stood, offering his hand. Good luck, Alara, wherever you end up. She shook it, feeling the finality of the gesture. Another thread cut, another connection severed. On the morning of the third day, she stood in her apartment for the last time. Everything she owned fit into 2 suitcases. Everything else, furniture, clothes, mementos, she left behind. Let the landlord deal with it. Let the feds seize it. None of it mattered. Victor picked her up at dawn, driving her to a private airfield where Adrian waited beside a small jet. He looked different in casual clothes, jeans, leather jacket, sunglasses. Less like a crime lord, more like a man trying to disappear. You came, he said when she got out of the car. Did you doubt I would? A little. He took her bags, loading them onto the plane. Last chance to change your mind. Where are we going? Greece, initially. I have a house on a small island. We'll stay there for a few months, let things settle. After that, he shrugged. We'll figure it out. Just like that. Just like that. Alara looked back at the city skyline, the place where she'd built her career, lost her marriage, killed 2 men, and fallen for a criminal who'd upended her entire existence. She should have felt regret, should have felt loss. Instead, she felt free. Let's go, she said. They flew east, leaving America and everything it represented behind. On the plane, Adrian opened a bottle of champagne, pouring 2 glasses. To survival, he said, to new beginnings. They drank, and Alara felt the last piece of her old self dissolve. The woman who'd accepted a dare in a nightclub was gone. The PR consultant who'd manipulated stories and buried scandals didn't exist anymore. In her place was something harder, sharper, forged in violence and impossible choices. I need to tell you something, Adrian said as they flew over the Atlantic, about what comes next. Okay? My operation isn't gone. It's just dormant. Victor's keeping it alive, waiting for me to come back, which means eventually I will come back. This exile isn't permanent. I know. And when I do, people will try to kill me. Again. Probably multiple times. That's the nature of this business. I know that too. So if you stay with me, if this becomes permanent, you need to understand what you're signing up for. It's not going to get easier. It's not going to get safer. We're going to spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Alara set down her glass, turning to face him fully. Adrian, I killed 2 people to survive in your world. I helped you destroy a federal prosecutor and a criminal empire. I watched you shoot your own brother. Do you really think I don't understand what I'm signing up for? I just want to make sure. I'm sure. She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. I choose this. I choose you. Every terrible, violent, impossible part of it. So stop asking if I'm sure and start accepting that I'm exactly where I want to be. He stared at her for a long moment, then smiled. You're terrifying, you know that? Good. We'll make a great team. They landed in Greece as the sun set, painting the Aegean Sea in shades of gold and crimson. Adrian's house was perched on a cliff overlooking the water, all white stone and blue shutters, isolated and perfect. Inside it was furnished simply, comfortable but not luxurious, a place for living rather than showing off. It's beautiful, Alara said, standing on the terrace. It's safe. That's what matters. Adrian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. We can stay here as long as you want. Years, if necessary. What about your empire? Victor can handle it, and when the time comes to go back, we'll go back, together. He turned her to face him. But for now, we breathe. We rest. We figure out who we are when we're not fighting for our lives. I don't know if I remember how to do that. Neither do I, so we'll learn together. They spent the next 3 months in that house on the cliff, and slowly, impossibly, they built something that resembled a life. Adrian cooked, poorly, but enthusiastically. Alara learned to swim in the sea, letting the salt water wash away months of blood and violence. They talked about everything and nothing, filling in the gaps of each other's histories, learning to be people instead of survivors. But the peace couldn't last forever. Victor called on a Tuesday, his voice tense over the encrypted line. We have a problem. Adrian put the phone on speaker. What kind of problem? Pierce cut a deal. He's testifying against everyone in Vance's network, which includes you. The feds are building a RICO case. They've frozen your assets, seized properties. They're coming after everything. How long do we have? Weeks? Maybe days. They're moving fast. Victor paused. You need to come back. We can fight this, but not from Greece. Adrian looked at Alara, and she saw the decision forming in his eyes. We're coming back. When? Tomorrow. He ended the call, and Alara felt the illusion of safety shatter. So much for breathing. I'm sorry, I thought we'd have more time. It's fine, I knew this was temporary. She moved to the bedroom, started packing. What's the plan? We go back. We fight the charges. We use every connection, every favor, every piece of leverage I have left. And if that doesn't work... He stopped, jaw tight. If that doesn't work, then we disappear for real. New identities, new lives. We vanish so completely that even the feds can't find us. You'd give up your empire? I'd give up everything before I'd let them put you in prison. He pulled her close, fierce and desperate. You're what matters now. The rest is just business. She kissed him, tasting salt and resolve and something that might have been fear. Then let's go finish this. They flew back to America under cover of darkness, landing at a private airfield Victor had secured. The city looked different now, colder, more hostile, like it had turned against them in their absence. Victor met them with 2 cars and a security team. The safe house is compromised, he said without preamble. We're using a new location, everything's ready. What about the feds? They're watching your known associates, monitoring communications. They know you'll come back eventually. They're waiting. Victor handed Adrian a file. But we have leverage. Information Pierce doesn't know we have. If we move fast, we can discredit him before his testimony destroys us. Adrian flipped through the file, his expression hardening. Where did you get this? I've been busy. 3 months is a long time. Victor looked at Alara. You ready to get back to work? She thought about the house on the cliff, the peaceful mornings and quiet evenings, about the life they could have had if the world had let them keep it. Then she thought about Adrian standing beside her in the wreckage, choosing her over everything else. Yeah, she said. I'm ready. They had 1 week to dismantle Pierce's testimony before he took the stand. 1 week to save Adrian's empire and their freedom. 1 week to prove that survival wasn't just about staying alive, it was about refusing to surrender. And Alara Voss had learned very well how to refuse. The leverage Victor had assembled was brutal in its simplicity. Pierce had a daughter, 26, living in Portland, working as a public defender. Clean record, good reputation, no connection to her father's corruption. Except for one detail. 3 years ago, she'd witnessed a crime Pierce had covered up. A murder committed by one of Vance's associates that Pierce had made disappear from the evidence log. She knew, Victor explained, spreading photos across the table. She saw the case file, asked her father about it. He told her it was classified, told her to forget about it, but she kept copies. Insurance probably, in case her father ever turned on her. And you found these copies how? Alara asked. Does it matter? Victor's expression was flat. We have them, which means we have Pierce. He testifies. His daughter goes down with him. Accessory after the fact, obstruction of justice. She'd lose her law license, probably due time. Adrian studied the files, his face unreadable. Pierce loves his daughter. It's the only decent thing about him, which makes her perfect leverage. Victor looked at Alara. You're going to deliver the message. Pierce knows you, trusts you in a way. Coming from Adrian, it's a threat. Coming from you, it's a negotiation. You want me to blackmail a federal prosecutor using his daughter? I want you to save us, all of us. This is how we do it. Alara looked at Adrian, waiting for him to object, to find another way. But he just nodded slowly. Victor's right. This is our best option. Maybe our only option. And if Pierce doesn't back down, if he decides to sacrifice his daughter to take you down, then we release everything and let the consequences fall where they will. Adrian's voice was cold, final. But he won't. He's not that strong. She wanted to argue, wanted to say this crossed a line, that using an innocent woman as leverage made them no better than Vance or Dominic. But the truth was simpler and uglier. They'd crossed that line months ago. This was just another step down a path they'd been walking since the night she kissed a stranger on a dare. When do I meet with him? she asked. Tomorrow. He's staying at a secure location pending his testimony. Victor has the address. Adrian reached across the table, taking her hand. You don't have to do this. I can find another way. No, you can't, and we both know it. She squeezed his fingers. I'll do it, but after this we're done. No more leverage, no more blackmail, no more destroying innocent people to save ourselves. Deal. The next morning, Alara drove to a nondescript apartment building in a suburb 30 miles outside the city. Pierce's secure location was laughably unsecure. 2 federal marshals in an unmarked car, standard locks, no surveillance. Victor's information was better than the government's protection. She knocked on the door at exactly 9 o'clock. Pierce answered, still in his bathrobe, looking haggard and old. When he saw her, confusion flickered across his face. Ms. Voss, what are you doing here? We need to talk about your testimony. I have nothing to say to you. Not even about your daughter? She held up a manila folder. Rebecca Pierce, public defender. Witness to a murder you covered up. Sound familiar? The color drained from Pierce's face. You leave her out of this. That's not up to me. It's up to you. Alara stepped past him into the apartment, uninvited. You testify against Adrian, these files go public. Your daughter gets charged as an accessory. Her career ends, her freedom ends. Everything she's built gets destroyed because you decided to play hero. This is blackmail. This is survival, yours and ours. She set the folder on the coffee table. You can look at it if you want. Photos, witness statements, the original case file you made disappear. It's all here, all documented, all ready to be delivered to the DOJ if you don't do exactly what I tell you. Pierce's hands shook as he opened the folder. She watched him read, watched the realization settle over him that she wasn't bluffing. When he finally looked up, there were tears in his eyes. Rebecca had nothing to do with this. She was trying to do the right thing. I know, and that's exactly why she'll go down for it. The system eats people like her for breakfast. Alara sat on the couch, crossing her legs. But here's the good news. You can save her. All you have to do is recant your testimony. Tell the investigators you made mistakes in your original statement, misremembered details, conflated cases. Make yourself look incompetent instead of corrupt, and they'll probably drop the charges against Adrian for lack of evidence. They'll know I'm lying, probably, but they won't be able to prove it. And more importantly, Rebecca stays safe. She leaned forward. Look, I know you hate Adrian. I know you think he's everything wrong with this city. You're not even wrong. But your daughter doesn't deserve to pay for his crimes or yours. So make the smart choice. Protect her. Pierce sat heavily in a chair, the folder trembling in his hands. If I do this, Vance's entire network goes free. Dozens of criminals who should be in prison will walk. Yes, that's the cost. How do you live with yourself? The question hit harder than Alara expected. She thought about Reed's face as he fell, about the warehouse fire, about every line she'd crossed to get to this moment, about how the woman sitting on this couch was a stranger to the one who'd walked into the ascent that night. I don't know yet, she said honestly, but I'm trying, and part of that is making sure the people I care about survive, even if it means making deals with devils. I'm the devil in this scenario? We all are. She stood, moving toward the door. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. After that, the files go public, and we both live with the consequences. She left Pierce sitting in his bathrobe, broken and defeated. Outside, Victor was waiting in the car. How'd it go? He'll fold. He loves his daughter too much not to. Good. That's one problem solved. Victor pulled into traffic. But we have another issue. Someone leaked your location to the press. They know you're back in the city. How many know? Everyone. It's all over the news. Former PR consultant returns from exile to face justice. They're treating you like a criminal celebrity. Alara laughed, the sound bitter. I guess I am one. Adrian wants you back at the safe house. Says it's not safe for you to be exposed. Adrian needs to stop treating me like I'm made of glass. But she let Victor drive her back anyway, too tired to argue. The safe house was a converted warehouse in an industrial district, the kind of place that looked abandoned from the outside but was fortress-grade secure inside. Adrian met her at the door, pulling her into his arms before she could say anything. You're okay. I'm fine. Pierce is going to recant. We're clear. Good. But that's not why I was worried. He pulled back, searching her face. The press knows you're here, which means every enemy I have knows you're here. You're exposed. So let's give them what they want. Let's go public. What? Think about it. Right now, I'm a mystery. A woman who vanished with a crime lord showed up months later to blackmail a federal prosecutor. The story writes itself. But if I control the narrative, if I go on record, give interviews, tell my version, I become too visible to kill quietly. Adrian stared at her. You want to do press? I want to survive. And the best way to survive isn't hiding. It's making sure everyone in the city knows exactly who I am and who I belong to. Make me untouchable by making me too famous to touch. That's insane. That's strategy. She pulled out her phone, already scrolling through contacts. I still have journalist friends. People who'd kill for an exclusive with me. We give them one. Controlled, carefully scripted, everything on my terms. I tell a story about falling for the wrong man, making mistakes, trying to find redemption. We paint me as a victim turned survivor. By the time I'm done, I'll have public sympathy and Adrian Cade's protection. No one will touch me. Victor, who'd been listening from the doorway, actually smiled. That might work. She'd be like a mob wife, but modern, relatable. I'm not doing this to be relatable. I'm doing it because the alternative is hiding for the rest of my life. Elara looked at Adrian. Trust me, I'm good at this. He was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but we do it my way. Controlled environment, my security, my terms. You don't go anywhere without Victor's team. Deal. She set up the interview for 2 days later with a journalist named Sarah Chen, no relation to Maya, who'd built a career on sympathetic profiles of controversial women. They met at a neutral location, a hotel conference room with Adrian's security posted at every entrance. Sarah was younger than Elara expected, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and a recorder that probably cost more than her suit. Thank you for agreeing to talk, Sarah said, settling into her chair. I know this must be difficult. It's necessary. There are a lot of misconceptions about who I am and what happened. So let's start at the beginning. How did you meet Adrian Cade? Elara had rehearsed this part. The truth, carefully edited. A dare. I was at a nightclub with a friend, recently divorced, feeling reckless. She dared me to kiss a stranger. That stranger turned out to be Adrian. I had no idea who he was, but you found out. Eventually. By then it was too late. He'd already started inserting himself into my life, my business, my reputation. I thought I was making strategic choices to protect my career, but really, I was just getting deeper into his world. Some people would say you had a choice, that you could have walked away. Could I? He had leverage over me. Professional secrets, financial control. I was trapped. The lie came easily, smooth and practiced. But over time, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving his world. I was understanding it. The people Adrian deals with, the systems he operates in, they're not that different from the corporate clients I used to represent. Same power plays, same manipulation, just more honest about the violence. Sarah leaned forward. Are you saying legitimate business is as corrupt as organized crime? I'm saying the line between them is thinner than most people want to admit. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The interview went on for 2 hours. Elara crafted a narrative that was part confession, part justification, designed to make her sympathetic without making Adrian look weak. She talked about fear, survival, complicated feelings. She made herself human and vulnerable while carefully avoiding any details that could be used against them in court. When Sarah turned off the recorder, she looked impressed. That was one of the most honest interviews I've ever done, or the best performance. I honestly can't tell which. Does it matter? I guess not. Sarah packed up her equipment. This is going to make waves. You know that, right? That's the point. The article dropped 3 days later under the headline, Elara Voss, Survival, Love, and Life in the Criminal Underworld. It was everywhere within hours, social media, news sites, morning talk shows. Sarah had done exactly what Elara had hoped, made her sympathetic, complicated, interesting. A woman who'd made mistakes but survived them. Someone people could root for instead of condemn. The response was overwhelming. Some called her a criminal, others called her brave. Feminist bloggers debated whether she was empowered or exploited. True crime podcasts dissected every word. Within a week, Elara Voss was famous in a way that made her untouchable. Too visible to kill, too controversial to ignore. It worked, Victor said, showing her the security reports. Threats have dropped by 60%. No credible attempts on your life. You're more valuable alive as a story than dead as revenge. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. Pierce recanted his testimony the following week, citing memory issues and procedural confusion. The RICO case against Adrian collapsed without his cooperation. Federal investigators tried to salvage it, but the evidence was too circumstantial, the witnesses too unreliable. After 3 months of legal wrangling, they dropped the charges. Adrian was free. Alara was famous. And somewhere in the chaos, they'd actually won. But winning left its own kind of scars. 6 months after they returned from Greece, Alara stood in what used to be Adrian's warehouse command center, now transformed into something that resembled a legitimate business office. Adrian had taken her advice and restructured his entire operation. Drug trafficking was out. The violence, the street-level crime, all of it dismantled piece by piece. In its place, he'd built a network of legitimate businesses: real estate, import-export, private security. Still profitable, still powerful, but clean enough to avoid federal scrutiny. It was her design, her strategy. She'd taken everything she knew about crisis management and reputation building and applied it to organized crime, transforming Adrian from a feared criminal into a respected businessman with a complicated past. "This is incredible," Victor said, reviewing financial reports. 6 months ago, we were on the verge of collapse. Now we're more profitable than ever. And completely legal. Mostly legal, Alara corrected. There are still some gray areas. Gray is better than black, and infinitely better than prison. Victor looked at Adrian. She saved you. You know that, right? I know. Adrian hadn't taken his eyes off Alara since she'd walked into the office. She's saved all of us. That night, they had dinner at Adrian's penthouse, the same one where they'd hidden after the warehouse shootout, now renovated into something that felt like a home. Real furniture, personal touches, photos on the walls. Evidence of a life instead of just survival. I've been thinking, Adrian said over wine, about what comes next. There's always something next. I mean for us. Long term. You've spent 6 months rebuilding my empire, making me legitimate. But what about you? What do you want? Alara considered the question. 6 months ago, she would have said freedom, safety, a return to normalcy. But that woman didn't exist anymore. She'd been dismantled and rebuilt just like Adrian's operation, transformed into something harder and more capable. I want this, she said finally. The work, the challenge, the building something from wreckage. I'm good at it, better than I ever was at regular PR. So you want to stay? I want to be your partner. Actually your partner, not just your fixer or your weapon or your weakness. I want equal say in decisions, equal stake in the business. I want to build something together that's ours. Adrian set down his wine, studying her. You're asking me to give up control. I'm asking you to share it with someone who's earned it. She met his eyes. I've killed for you, lied for you, destroyed my entire life for you. I think I've proven I'm invested. You have, more than anyone ever has. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Okay. Partners, equal stake, equal say. We build this together. Just like that? Just like that. He smiled, and it was genuine. You're right. You've earned it. And honestly, you're better at this than I am. I know how to run a criminal empire. You know how to make it look legitimate. Together, we're unstoppable. Or we destroy each other. That's always a possibility. He pulled her to her feet, drawing her close. But I'm willing to risk it if you are. She kissed him, and it felt different than before. Not desperate or survival-driven, but solid. Real. The kiss of two people who'd chosen each other deliberately, with full knowledge of the cost. They spent the next year building. Alara formally joined Adrian's operation, her name on contracts, her decisions shaping policy. She negotiated deals, managed relationships, turned Adrian's criminal network into a corporate machine. Where he'd used fear and violence, she used strategy and public relations. Together, they created something that was powerful without being openly criminal, respected without being legitimate. The city noticed. Politicians who'd once avoided Adrian started taking meetings. Business leaders who'd kept their distance started seeking partnerships. Slowly, methodically, Alara and Adrian rebuilt not just his empire, but his reputation. He became a philanthropist, a community leader, someone who'd made mistakes but was working to make amends. It was all performance, carefully crafted and maintained. But performance was power, and power was survival. Maya reached out once during that year, a brief email asking if they could talk. Alara deleted it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. Some friendships, once betrayed, couldn't be salvaged. It wasn't cruelty. It was acceptance. On the one-year anniversary of their return from Greece, Adrian took Alara to the place where it all started, the Ascent nightclub. It had changed ownership, been remodeled, but the VIP section was still there. The same private table where a woman on a dare had kissed a stranger and changed both their lives forever. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked as they sat in that same spot. That night, the kiss, everything that came after. Alara thought about Reed's body, about the warehouse fire, about standing over Dominic's corpse, about every line she'd crossed and every piece of herself she'd lost along the way. "No," she said honestly, "I don't. That kiss destroyed who I was, but it created who I am. And I like this version better. Even though she's a criminal, I prefer entrepreneur with flexible ethics." She smiled. "But yes, even though, because this version doesn't lie to herself, doesn't pretend to be something she's not. The woman I was before, the PR consultant fixing other people's mistakes, she was playing a role. This is real. Is it? Or are we just playing different roles now? Does it matter? The performance is the reality. We've built something real from the lies, an empire, a partnership, a life. That's more than most people get." Adrian was quiet for a moment, then reached into his pocket. "I have something for you." He pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, not an engagement ring, but something else. A band of platinum with a single word engraved inside. Partner. "It's not a proposal," he said. "It's a promise. We're in this together. Equal. Forever, or until one of us gets the other killed." Alara slipped the ring on, feeling the weight of it. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I'm not good at romance." "Neither am I, but we're good at this. At surviving, at building, at refusing to break." She kissed him. "So let's keep doing it. See how far we can take it before the world catches up." They left the ascent hand in hand, walking into a city that had tried to destroy them and failed. Around them, life continued. People pursuing dreams, building careers, trying to carve out their small piece of happiness. Alara and Adrian had done the same, just with higher stakes and fewer illusions. 2 years later, Alara stood in a conference room overlooking the city, presenting a proposal to a room full of investors. The company was legitimate now, a corporate entity with shareholders, quarterly reports, SEC filings. Adrian sat beside her, silent and supportive, letting her lead. She talked about growth potential, market expansion, strategic partnerships. Everything she said was true, carefully documented, completely legal. The investors asked questions, she answered them, and by the end of the meeting, they'd secured $50 million in funding. Walking out of that building, Alara felt something she hadn't expected. Pride. Not guilt, not shame, not the hollow satisfaction of survival. Actual pride in what they'd built. "You were brilliant in there," Adrian said in the car. "It was easy. Numbers don't lie. Well, they do, but not in ways anyone can prove. Still, you've come a long way from crisis management." "I'm still doing crisis management. Just bigger crises, better clients." She looked out the window at the city sliding past. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't kissed you that night? If Maya hadn't set me up, if I'd just gone home? Sometimes. I think I would have kept running my operation the same way until someone finally killed me. Dominic, or Vance, or some other enemy I hadn't made yet. I think I would have died angry and alone, convinced power was enough. And now I know better. Power without someone to share it with is just isolation." He took her hand. "You saved my life, Alara. Not that night in the warehouse or at the gala, but by showing me there was another way to exist, that survival didn't have to be solitary." Very poetic for a former crime lord. "Former?" He smiled. "I prefer retired with consulting privileges." They drove back to the penthouse, and Alara thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a reckless dare to a partnership that had rewritten both their lives. She thought about the people they'd hurt, the lines they'd crossed, the pieces of themselves they'd sacrificed to survive. Was it worth it? That was the question she'd been asking herself for 2 years. the one she could never quite answer. Because the truth was complicated. She'd destroyed her old life, killed people, become complicit in crimes she'd once condemned. But she'd also found something real in the wreckage. A partnership that felt more authentic than her marriage ever had. A purpose that mattered more than client lists and press releases. Maybe that made her a monster. Maybe it made her a survivor. Maybe it made her both. 3 years after the kiss that changed everything, Alara sat in her home office, their home office now, shared space in the penthouse, reviewing reports. Adrian's empire was thriving. Her investments were paying off. They'd become untouchable through a combination of legitimacy and carefully maintained fear. No one challenged them anymore. No one dared. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like landing. Like they'd survived the chaos and found solid ground, and now they had to figure out what to do with peace. "You're thinking too loud," Adrian said from the doorway. "Just reviewing numbers." "Liar. You're thinking about whether this is enough, whether we've accomplished something or just deferred our destruction." She looked up, impressed. "You're getting good at reading me. I've had practice." He came to sit beside her. "So which is it? Accomplishment or deferral?" "Both. Neither. I don't know." She closed the laptop. "I keep waiting for the guilt to hit, for the realization that I've become everything I used to condemn. But it doesn't come. I look at what we've built, and all I feel is satisfaction." "Is that so terrible?" "It should be. I've helped you clean blood money, cover up crimes, destroy people who threatened us. That should haunt me. But it doesn't. And I don't know if that makes me strong or broken. It makes you adapted. Survival isn't pretty, Alara. It's not supposed to be. We do what we have to do, and we live with the consequences. That's not broken. That's human." "Human," she repeated. "I'm not sure I feel human anymore. I feel like something else. Something harder." "Good. Hard things don't break as easily." He pulled her close. "You want to know what I think? I think you're exactly who you were always meant to be. The woman who kissed me on a dare was already this person. She just needed permission to become it." "That's terrifying. That's honest." He kissed her forehead. "We're not good people, Alara. We've done terrible things, but we're good to each other. We're good at surviving. And in a world that's constantly trying to destroy us, that's enough." She wanted to argue, wanted to believe there was some moral accounting, some ledger where their crimes were balanced against their accomplishments. But Adrian was right. There was only survival, only the choice to keep building or surrender to guilt. "Okay," she said finally. "It's enough." And it was. Not because they'd earned redemption or found peace, but because they'd chosen to keep moving forward despite the weight they carried. Because survival wasn't about being clean or good or justified. It was about refusing to stop, even when everything said you should. Years would pass. Their empire would grow, legitimacy would follow, and eventually the whispers about their past would fade into legend. People would forget that Adrian Cade had once run drugs and killed competitors. They'd forget that Alara Voss had helped him do it. They'd see only the success, the power, the partnership that had conquered a city. And maybe that was its own kind of truth, that people were never just one thing, never just victim or villain, never just survivor or monster. They were both simultaneously shaped by impossible choices and the determination to keep going. Alara had learned that lesson the hard way, had killed for it, bled for it, rebuilt herself around it. And in the end, sitting in a penthouse overlooking a city she'd helped reshape, she understood something fundamental about the human condition. We are not the worst things we've done, but we're not absolved of them either. We carry our choices, our crimes, our survival, and we make meaning from the weight. That night, standing on the terrace with Adrian, watching the city lights blur into constellation, Alara felt the full weight of her transformation. She was not the woman who'd accepted a dare in a nightclub. That woman had been shattered, her pieces scattered across warehouses and safe houses and federal prosecutions. What remained was something new, not better or worse, but real. "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked. "That I've become a queen of a dark empire, and I'm not sorry about it." He laughed, the sound genuine. "Good. Queens shouldn't apologize. Even when they've killed to get their throne? Especially then. History doesn't remember the merciful. It remembers the ones who survived." She turned to face him, seeing her partner, her equal, the man who'd dragged her into hell and stood beside her while she learned to thrive there. "Do you think we'll survive, Long term? Probably not. But we'll go down fighting, and that's more than most people can say. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't redemption or forgiveness or peace. But it was truth. Messy, complicated, stained with blood, and built on choices that couldn't be undone. And in its own way, that truth was enough. Alara had learned that survival wasn't about staying clean. It was about accepting that you'd gotten dirty and deciding that the mess was worth it. That the person you became in the process of surviving was valid, even if she was unrecognizable to who you'd been before. She'd made her choice. She'd kissed Adrian Cade, and that kiss had rewritten her entire existence, had killed the woman she was, and birthed someone harder, sharper, more honest about the violence required to exist in a world that ate the weak. And standing there with the city spread below them like a kingdom they'd conquered through blood and strategy and sheer refusal to break, Alara Voss knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would do it all again. Every terrible choice, every crossed line, every piece of herself she'd sacrificed on the altar of survival. Because this partnership, this empire, this hard-won existence was real in a way nothing else had ever been. And reality, she'd learned, was worth any price. Even if that price was her soul,